on this computer. Peace, love, and prosperity to all of humanity on planet Earth. This is Abdul Bey, Abdul Smith Bey, Wazir Al Raised for AMPAG, and
That's
we'll be discussing the last of the triple principles. Well, we went over how to establish a Moorish government. That would be sovereignty and independence. And could you all please mute your mics? iPhone, you got to mute your mic, please, if you don't mind. So establishing your Moorish government, that would have been, that represents sovereignty and independence. We discussed integrity of domains, right? Which is ultimately your accessions to the treaties and subsequent legislation and laws, your courts, and the enforcement of your laws to solidify the integrity of your domains, not to mention your the documentation that's issued to your nationals so they can prove their allegiance to a separate state, which gives them the protection because they fall under a separate jurisdiction, for real this time, not just by your mouth. You don't have any jurisdiction over me. Now you actually can prove that they don't have any jurisdiction over you because you've got the emanating documents to show and prove so. You can go back to that United States versus Rodney Burton case in which that was discussed. And so now we're talking about economic liberty without any inequality, the third and the final three of the triple principles: sovereignty and independence, integrity of domains, economic liberty without any inequality. Let me share the screen here. And so, all right, where are we here? Okay, this is not, let's go here. There we go. It's in the preamble. So here what we're looking at is the Act of Algeciras. Let's go to the preamble. So it says here, inspired by the interest attaching itself to the reign of order, peace, and prosperity in Morocco, and recognizing that the attainment thereof can only be effected by means of the introduction of reforms. See, we got to introduce reforms into the empire. We got to clean it up with reforms, right? Clean up the old system and bring in the new under love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. And then it goes on to say, based upon the triple principle. So the introduction of reforms is based on the triple principle: sovereignty and independence, the integrity of domains, and economic liberty without any inequality. All right, so we'll be talking about economic liberty without any inequality. Go back to where we started on this document because I wanted to show something why it was where it was at, which is here. So it says, who furnished with full power. So is discussing or is talking about all the signatory powers that you see above or prior to this particular paragraph here, right? Who furnished with full powers, which were found in good and due form. Found in good and due form. My highlights is not working the way I want it to. Come on, stick with me, work with me here. Oh, it's going all over the place. So you see, it says we're found in good and due form. They have full powers that was found in good and due form. What gives them the full powers is found in good and due form. They're in conformity with the laws of nations, right? They have a flag, they have a seal, they have a constitution that's been ratified and deposited. They have acceded to treaty. They have laws. They're found in good and due form. So here we're talking about the 3 or the 6 different chapters of the Act of Algeciras, right? A declaration relative to the organization of the police, right? A regulation concerning the detection and repression of the contraband of arms. So we have control over the police, we have control over the guns, right? Number 3, chapter 3, an act of concession for a Moroccan state bank. So before you get to the economic aspect, which is the Moroccan state bank, you first have to secure your law enforcement, which is your police, right? I don't know why my highlights don't work. Whatever. And then also, you have to take control of the guns so that now you can enjoy economic liberty without any inequality because you no longer have to be worried about, citizens or whatever trying to overthrow the government, right? You have control over the police, military, and you have control over the guns. Then now that we've taken control of that, we go into the banking system. So you have an act of concession for a Moroccan state bank. Chapter 3. Chapter 4 goes on to talk about a declaration concerning a better return of taxes and the creation of new revenues. Okay? Economic liberty without any inequality. This is what we're working towards. The current states, the current Moroccan states that's online right now, we're working on the integrity of our domains. This is why patience is required. Understanding that establishing your state is not a magic pill. There's work involved in the meantime to get you to the level that you need to be at, which is economic liberty without any inequality. Well, you can't just jump from sovereignty and independence straight to economic liberty. You first have to solidify the integrity of domains before you can obtain the economic liberty. You have to be able to protect it once you get it, right? Then you have chapter 5, a regulation concerning the customs of the empire and the repression of fraud and smuggling. This chapter talks about generating revenue from confiscated merchandise. Like the Act of Algeciras has so many forms of revenue for the state, not for you as an individual. That's why the individual process is not even the answer. Even if it did work for you as an individual, it still didn't work. Why am I saying that? Because the goal is to uplift fallen humanity. That means all the peoples on planet Earth, not just you. So it didn't work. It worked for you, but it didn't work for the upliftment of fallen humanity. So you're not doing your job as a Moor. Your job is to uplift fallen humanity, not uplift yourself. That's why the old paradigm, the individual processes, is null and void, and it hasn't really worked. It may have worked for some, but it didn't work for others. It's discretionary, arbitrary. You want the real solution?
No, hold on, man. You know, some people
Real
hold on.
solution is Morris, could you please mute your mic, please? Somebody got to mute their mics, please. Thank you. The real solution is a collective solution. It's a collective unified front based on 3 branches of government and your consular courts, which gives you the authority and the power to uplift all of fallen humanity, because now you can enact laws and legislation to govern the colonists by way of instituting reforms, which is what the preamble stated. For the prosperity and security of Morocco, we were to institute reforms based on the triple principles: sovereignty and independence, economic liberty with integrity of domains, and then economic liberty without any inequality. And then finally, chapter 6 talks about a declaration relative to public services and public works. That's what they call the great enterprise. You don't believe me? Reference points, Article 106. Before we go into some of these articles, let's start with Article 106. And let's see what 106 says. Sister Makar, are you there? Can you please read Article 106 for me, please?
All right.
There it is. Can you read it? Can you see it?
That says, okay, yeah, I see it. All right. In case the Sharifian government should invoke the aid of foreign capital or foreign industry for the working of public services or for the operation of public works, roads, railways, ports, telegraphs, and other public works, the signatory powers reserve to themselves the right to see to it that the authority of the state over these great enterprises, general interests remain entire.
Period. Period. In case the Sharifian government should invoke the aid of foreign capital. So that's in case we need the aid of foreign capital, meaning we make contact with, I don't know, let's say France. We need some capital. Not based on a loan, though. In case the Sharifian government should invoke the aid of foreign capital or foreign industry, right? So you can contract with, you know, they say that the Indians, and what's the name of the real name of the country? Not Hikupta, but what is the real name for India? Anyway,
Hindustan.
Hindustan.
Hindustan. So when they, you know, we believe, we know that they're the so-called engineer geniuses, computer engineers or whatever, right? So they can be contracted as that's the foreign industry that they would be assisting us with, is the engineering, computer engineering, whatever, right? You consult with them or you contract with them. So it says foreign industry for the working of public services. This is it's dealing with the public services and the public works, or for the operation of public works, roads, railways, ports, telegraphs, and other public works. The signatory power reserved to themselves. Who are the signatory powers? Who was the signatory powers? Germany, Great Britain, Sweden. They all backed out of the treaty. The only one left now is the United States. Reserved to themselves the right to see to it that the authority of the state, what state? Our states, the Moroccan state. The authority of the state, the authority of the Moorish state over these great enterprises. So we have authority over the great enterprise. And it's their job, and it's our job and their job to make sure that the general interest remains entire. Cannot be compromised. It must remain entire. What needs to be remained entire? What must remain entire? The great enterprises. And who has the authority over the great enterprises? The state. What state? The Moroccan states. Economic liberty without any inequality. This is what we're working towards. It's not going to happen overnight. But as you see, based on this contract, it's saying that our state have the authority over the great enterprises, which is the empire. Come on now. And why are we in this trick bag for all this time? The police shall be under the sovereign authority of His Majesty the Sultan. What police? The police to all the signatory powers, including the United States. And since there's no more Sultan, who's the successor? The state, the Moroccan states. Specifically, the United States of Morocco, which we're currently working on the treaty organization to establish it. So the police shall be under the sovereign authority of His Majesty the Sultan. It shall be recruited by the Moxen from the Moorish Mohammedans, commanded by Moorish Cades, and distributed in 8 ports open to commerce. This is the kind of power and authority we have. And this is not what I'm really trying to go over. That's just the control over the police. Let's go to the banking.
Yeah, man.
Somebody, could you please mute your mics? Who is that? It could be Sorry Yahweh Ill. I don't know if it's you, Makara.
No, it's not me.
Amara Bay, somebody please mute your mics.
Well, it's not me, but if you make one of us your co-host, we can help you with that, if you would like.
Okay. That's a good idea.
My apologies. I think that was me. My apologies.
Okay, it's fine, brother. All right, chapter 3.
Islam, bro. I
Yeah.
got a question, brother.
Yes.
The Islam kindred. Just want to say Islam to all Islam, all my aunts, all mothers, peace and love, all my kindreds. Question that I have, and you kind of almost answered it, but within what you was reading, that almost sounds like building within a diplomatic relation, integrity of domain. What you just read in article, what was that, 106? When it was dealing with the public duties and administrations as far as, aid to give into, any government. So, that goes back to almost what you were just speaking about building that integrity and domain, but doing it on a diplomatic relations, by way of what they say, the airship of the Moroccan states.
That's absolutely right. And look at what it says here on 107. The validity of the concessions which may be made under the terms of Article 106, as well as for government supplies, shall throughout the Sharifian Empire be subordinate to the principle of public awards on proposals without preference of nationality, whenever applicable under the rules followed in foreign laws.
Right. So that proposal, is that, recognition or that works that, with the diplomatic relations.
It is based in diplomatic relations, and that's why there cannot be any preference without preference of nationality, because it's economic liberty without any inequality. So we cannot make decisions based on nationality. It's going to be based on the merit, the proposals that you present. So you got 3, 5, 10 nations that present a proposal to do some sort of public services, perform some sort of public services for our empire, right? Our determination will have to be based on the merit of the proposals and their skill sets, the quality of their work, etc., not based on their nationality, right? So economic liberty without any inequality is not about money.
Right.
It's about governance.
So,
Yes, there's a big check that comes with that, 3 commas. But don't get caught up with that. If we get caught up with that and just start, going on, just start vacationing, then what's going to happen to the government? We got to stay focused. We got to control it. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, go ahead, brother. I'm going to ask a question after you finish.
No, I was just going to say we have to control and govern an entire our vast estate, which is the empire, which is the great enterprise, which includes people. If Morocco is the world, then the world has 7 billion people. Go ahead, brother.
So would that be safe to say, as far as the administrations, just like how you see all these other ethnic groups come in, you see China, the so-called Asians come in, they all have their community, the Hindustans come in, the Russians and so forth. So within that, what they say, building within their community and us coming back into our proper state, those allocations of those receiverships based off them operating on the land, meaning they still have their nationality, but they just would have to now contribute to the resources and the lands of the official de jure government as far as allocations of taxes and those things, correct?
That's correct, while being under Moroccan law.
Copy. Yes,
and they maintain their nationality. There's a difference between the de jure Moroccan government and the United States de facto corporate entity. But even then, even under their jurisdiction, they maintain their nationality, right? This is the reason why you see that they'll have corner stores and businesses all around the hood. They're partaking in commerce with their nationality intact, while the heirs of the land who had their nationality stripped from them are operating in a subjugated status. The Negro is languishing in the corners of American society where he found himself exiled at home. Who said that?
Martin Luther King.
Islam, Martin Luther King.
You see? So everybody else get to maintain their nationality, but the Moors have been stripped of theirs. But it was also incumbent upon the Moors, where was that? It was incumbent upon the Moors, I did that wrong, to return back to Morocco. Well, I'm close anyway. I was gonna, where are we at? That's chapter 6. No, I'm not trying to be at chapter 6. Let me go back to chapter 3. Any other questions? There we go. All right. So act of concession for a state bank. But before we go here, let me do this. Let's go to the charter. Excuse me. Sister McCarr, could you please read this? And we've been over it several times. Let's go over it again. Start with the title, please.
Right. United Nations Charter, Chapter 11, Declaration regarding non-self-governing territories.
A
Article-
declaration regarding non-self-governing territories, Morris. So now Texas is now self-governed. It's been reclaimed under the name DEMT. Go ahead, sister. Article 73.
Mem- Members of the United Nations, which have or assume responsibilities for the administration of territories whose peoples have not yet attained a full measure of self-government.
What I thought. So it says, so what did it say in the very beginning? Members of the United Nations, members. So it's 193 member states, and many of which are colonists who are administrators over non-self-governing territories. In our case, is the United States. So you can read it as the United States as a member of the United Nations, which have or has assumed responsibilities for the administration of territory. These peoples can be converted to Moors, peoples who have not yet attained a full measure of self-government. I mean, it's barely even coded. It's clear language. Continue, Sister Makara.
Recognize the principle that the interests of the inhabitants of these territories are paramount.
Right there. So the United States must recognize that the principles that the interests of the inhabitants of those territories are paramount. They're absolute. They are the order of the day. When we say that nationality is the order of the day, the Moors are the order of the day. We are paramount. Continue, sister.
And accept as a sacred trust the obligation to promote to the utmost within the system of international peace and security established by the present charter, the well-being of the inhabitants of these territories, and to this end.
Okay, so it says, and accept as a sacred trust, our sacred trust. That's coded. We got a sacred trust. What's a sacred trust? Our vast estate. The obligation, see, that's they're double talking there. The obligation to promote to the utmost within the system of international peace and security established by the present charter. Let's go to the expatriation document, and then we'll go right back to that. Let's go to the expatriation document. Let's make another point to go along with that. So we're talking about the United Nations Charter and what's contained in the United Nations Charter. Okay, I want to use this document to show you something. So you have Mr. Hoffman Philip, Charge d'Affaires, to Mr. Root, Secretary of State. You guys can see that, right? Okay, and it's dated August 3rd, 1906, coming from where? American Legation in Tangiers, August 3rd, 1906. So, Mr. Philip, Charge d'Affaires, or you can say ambassador, or you can say minister, Minister of Foreign Affairs, whatever. Well, actually, the Minister of Foreign Affairs in this case would be the Secretary of State, but he is he's representing the United States at the American Legation. That's his post. So he's like an ambassador or charge d'affaires for the Americans at the American Legation. Where was the American Legation? In Tangier. What was in Tangier? It was called the diplomatic body. The diplomatic body was in Morocco. It's owned and controlled and ran by Morocco. And all the signatory powers on planet Earth had a post at the diplomatic body in Tangier. So this is another way to prove that we're not Americans, because they had a legation that was called the American Legation in Morocco. You had a German legation, French legation, Swedish legation, British legation, Russian legation, Norwegian legation, Hungary legation, they had the legation of Hungary, Austria-Hungary, etc. It was the headquarters where all the countries were represented. They all had their outposts. They were called legations. Why am I pointing this out? Because that was dissolved eventually, and then it became the League of Nations, another outpost, another central body to govern the affairs of all nation states on planet Earth. That was dissolved, and then it became the United Nations. So if it started as a diplomatic body in Tangier, in Morocco, and made it, and then it had it's been reorganized over time from the diplomatic body to the League of Nations to now the United Nations. What does that tell you? It tells you that the United Nations is based in Moroccan law. It's a remake. It's a remix of the original. What was the original? The diplomatic body. We oversaw the diplomatic body. That was established by the Moors. The Moors fell asleep, acquiesced, and then it went on to become the League of Nations and now the United Nations, which means now when we come back alive, come back into our proper person, guess what we will be overseeing? Go back to it. The charter. It's a remake. It's a remix from the original diplomatic body. If we had came back online in our proper person in full powers in 1930, for example, then we would be overseeing the League of Nations. But the League of Nations became the United Nations. And that's what it is up until today. So since we're coming back online, we're making a push to take our seat in the affairs of men, the highest seat in the Security Council that the United States is sitting in. And according to Article 73, they have to relinquish that seat. They got to give it up. That's the point I'm trying to make, going back to the Hoffman-Phillip document, the expatriation document, because it's showing you, go back to it real quick, because it's showing you where he's coming from, the American legation. That was his outpost. So he was briefing Secretary Root, Mr. Root, about the Treaty of Madrid and the Act of Algeciras. Sir, there are strictly speaking no Moroccan laws relating to citizenship of Moorish subjects in Morocco. Moorish subjects in Morocco. The fundamental laws of this non-Christian country are based entirely upon the Islamic code, no part of which treats of the subject of citizenship. We're either nationals or we're subjects. We're not citizens. Period. That's not part of our Islamic code. Either you're subjugated as a subject or you're a proper person as a national. One or the other. But they made us citizens through what? The Naturalization Act. Why are you Moorish Americans? Because you're a descendant of Moroccans, naturalized in America, i.e. Moorish subjects. It was up to us to go back to question 31. What is the modern name of the Moabites? Moroccans. We were supposed to find the answers to the test. Not just cling on to something that you think the prophet said. without the clear understanding of as to what it is that he was really saying. The prophet knew good and well, and it's Morocco. It's not America. So you wasn't born in American land. You were born into the American jurisdiction based on naturalization. That's why he said, the descendants of Moroccans born in America. You were born into into American jurisdiction as a naturalized citizen.
Because there really is no American land, is there?
There is no American land, and it is Morocco, period. It's not, I'm gonna give Al-Aqsa, it's not Morocco, America of the farthest west, is it? It's Morocco of the farthest west. It's not the American empire, is it? It's the Moroccan empire. Chapter 47, Circle 7 Quran. The Moabites are the true possessors and founders of the present Moroccan empire, not the present American empire. So which one are you? American or Moroccan? Well, you wouldn't establish an empire and name the people name one thing and the empire name something else. You can't claim the Moroccan empire and be an American. The Americans are on a protected status under the Moroccan jurisdiction.
So all those old, supposedly ancient maps show America and show, copper-colored people with feathers and things that they're showing, talking about us as being ancient, is always it was America, is another lie.
Trick bag.
Mm-hmm.
When the ICJ, the judges adjudicated the case with France versus the United States, the reference point that they utilized to adjudicate the case was not the dictionary, was it? It was not some book, was it? By some foremost scholar, was it? What did they use to adjudicate the case? The Treaty of Peace and Friendship, the Treaty of Madrid, and the Act of Algeciras. So then my question to the Moors would be, what does the treaty say about you? Not what the dictionary says, not what some book says, not what some map says. Anybody can put a map together. But what is res judicata? What is based in well-settled principles? International law. International law and law in and of itself deals with facts and truth. Treaty is the supreme law of the land. The treaties is what's identifying us as well as the land. The present Moroccan Empire, not the present American Empire. I digress.
Can I interject with that, brother, also?
Please do.
When it comes to the term, what they refer to as America, it's actually a term that's actually referring to the 13 colonies. So when you understand the history and how the term America became established, wasn't about the jurisdiction or the whole establishment of the land being known as America, which we are being misnomed and referring to it today. It was just in context of the 13, what they say, colonies that were, what they say, a part of those treaties or those organic de jure treaties, that establishes, the Constitution and so forth going forward. So when you look at the term or hear the term America, it's really just referring about those 13 colonies that were in contract with the Moroccan Empire.
That's it.
Yeah.
And that still had nothing to do with the land.
No, it's because we're talking their birth. So we're talking colonies, which were for plantation. That's why you go back to the Articles of Association, those things. And then you emerge into a confederacy. That's the Articles of Confederacy. Then they evolved into the United States, corporate entity in
Well,
1789.
First of all, first it was a de jure republic, and then the corporate entity in 1871.
Yeah, and then that came after, 1789. Then you morphed into what they say, a corporate, as our brother was just explaining Islam. Yeah.
But even so, sister, I heard you say it still doesn't have to do with the land. Yes, it does. How? They leasing it. What are they? Tenants? Who are we? Landlords?
No, I didn't mean in that regard.
I know. I was clarifying. I was just using that as a teaching moment for the floor. But I know you know the difference. And I know what you meant. Right? No, it's not giving them the land. Right? We know that. But it deals with the land from the perspective that they're leasing it. And we are the landlords. So you got the Moroccans as the landlords and the Americans as the tenants. So now you have to choose between the entire submission of either or, because you have been subjugated when this happened. A lot of Moors have chosen the American jurisdiction. And they don't want to course correct. That's fine.
That's kind of, that brings to mind, like they have in these old slavery movies when the slaves get free. And some of them say, I'm getting the hell up out of here. I'm going here, I'm going there. The other one's like, I'm gonna stay right here.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Continue to part A, sister, on Article 73.
To ensure with due respect for the culture of the peoples concerned, their political, economic, social, and educational advancement, their just treatment, and their protection against abuses.
Period. So the United States, that's what they have signed on to. The United States have to ensure, with due respect for the culture of the peoples concerned, the Moors, their political, economic, social, and educational advancement, their just treatment, and their protection against abuses, but not as individuals. This is just cogence. This is a just cogence thing, preemptory norm of international law, not customary norm. There's a difference in the two. Customary is just the normal way of doing things within the system. Preemptory takes precedence over customary. It's a higher level of, it's more sense of urgency. And preemptory norms deal with human rights and state rights as a national of your state, not an individual who has been subjugated. So now that we've established our states, they have to have due respect for the culture of our peoples, our political, economic, social, and educational advancement, our just treatment, and a protection against any abuses. They got their backs against the wall, Moors. We got all the power, all of it, every bit of it. The only thing that's keeping us from our power is us. We're delaying our own justice. We're selling each other out. We're misleading each other. We're selling each other scammy packages. It's us. I cannot go to Inglewood wearing blue. The Bloods over there would shoot me on sight because I got on a color. It's us. Gangster disciple. Right? Crips and Bloods, Pyru.
Education.
When you talk about that, miseducation, the educational system, a lot of it is by design, but it's still kept being carried out by us nonetheless.
Right, because it's the ignorance. Total ignorance.
Two things with ignorance. Ignorance is not ignorant
It's
of
not
the
an
law.
excuse. Yeah, it's not an excuse.
Right?
Mhm.
And my people perish from a lack of knowledge, which is ignorance.
And mindset, because I don't know, I see it as acting like children, grown men acting like children,
Are.
dumb children.
Well,
They,
listen.
like you don't have common sense. What's wrong with you?
i.e., why they call us what?
Yeah.
Minority.
Yeah.
Islam.
Minors. We're minors. We're acting as minors.
Yeah,
You got to put our big boy pants up and our big girl skirts up
yeah, yeah.
and take our feet in the affairs of men. We got to confess our own. What does the prophet mean when he says confess your own, right? Your own laws and legislation. Worship under your own vine and fig tree. That's your own constitution, your own state seal. Not enforce their constitution, not enforce their Supreme Court case laws and their statutes and their municipal laws in general. That's childish, i.e. children.
May I?
Yes, please. Go ahead, brother.
Yes, being prior service.
Peace, brother.
Yeah, being in prior service in the military and trained as an officer, we have to take also in the aspects of what they call psychological warfare. That's a lot more effective than just the actual initial conflict with weapons. The most effective the military had was the weapon of psychological warfare, and that's the most effective and the most last-long weapon that the military has. I yield.
Islam, brother, that's how they got us with the COINTEL, movements also to prolong that liberation when groups were assembling to, bring things online where, those COINTEL movements. So I agree with you wholeheartedly with that, brother, with that psychological tactics that the military complex did do on massive of the people.
You know what that doctrine is called? It's called silent weapons for quiet wars.
Mm-hmm.
Carter G. Woodson said it best in the miseducation of the Negro. You got control of their minds. You no longer have to tell them what to do. They'll find their own place. What's a great example of that? So Rosa Parks, quote unquote, allegedly, right, refused to sit in the back of the bus, sat in the front, caused an uproar where where the black people of the time, what do you call that when when they went on strike, I guess, when they stopped riding the bus, what that's called again? I forgot what that demonstration is called. Boycott. Yeah. They boycotted the bus.
Right.
So now they regained the right to ride in the front of the bus. See, we're talking about riding in the front of the bus versus the back of the bus instead of taking over the entire vast estate. But anyway, so we now have the right and the ability to ride in the front of the bus. Where do we ride now? Now that we have the right and the ability to just ride in the front of the bus, where do we ride? In the back of the bus.
But here's what's interesting about that case. That was a reenactment for a case that was on the record in 1857. Mm-hmm. So that case was already ruled on stars decisis, which was just almost a reenactment 100 years later. They took a case that was on the book and reenacted it into the public's domain.
Mm-hmm. Another thing that they were doing too, we were looking for them to treat us better, and that was the problem.
Mm-hmm.
That was the problem. We were looking for them to treat us better, and we saw that as gains when we got them to treat us better in a certain issue or something, and that was totally the wrong viewpoint and perception, etc.
Well, you're referring to us marching and praying for the legislation. So we were seeking we're looking for them to write legislation on our behalf. We were looking for them to confess for us. We were supposed to confess our own. We were supposed to be writing our own legislation, not walking around.
But we were fighting at that time for them to serve us in their restaurants, for them to allow us to participate in hotels and things like that.
Integration.
Integration. That's right.
That was the media.
That's right.
That was the media, but there's also a backdrop to that story.
There is a back, but the good brother MLK said, I done integrated my people into a burning house. Right. He regretted it after it was all said and done. He got the legislation passed. but then he regretted it. He started course correcting, especially once he got with Malik El Shabazz when he came back from Mecca as Malik El Shabazz. He's no longer Malcolm X, and he's no longer preaching hate. The white man is the devil. Now he's talking diplomatic relations. Now he's talking about going to the United Nations under human rights violations, not civil rights. Oh, we can't have that. He got to go. He's getting too close to the answers to the test.
And also, brother, keep in line the 4 people that got assassinated within that 10-year period. You had 2 Kennedys, and
Correct.
you had El Shabazz, and you had Martin Luther King. What was the significance of why the 2 Kennedys got assassinated? Remember, they was bringing back the gold standard online, which was a projective for the Federal Reserve boards because it countered their control over the economics. The silent wars of the economic hitman, because that's what it is. So within those 2 getting removed, right? Then they take out Brother L, and then they go after, the prominent one that was influencing those that was under the Christian belief.
Right, Martin Luther King. But what was the other threat that the King brothers posed? The real threat was that they would have been willing to sign off on Public Law 856, which relinquishes extraterritorial jurisdiction.
Islam.
Remember, they were pretty much cool with so-called Black people at the time. John, right, the son, John Kennedy Jr.,
Right.
John, man, used to be hanging out at the clubs and stuff with Black people. We saw pictures of that. He was cool with Donald Trump. Best friends.
See, they don't even talk about the history and how Al Pacino became Al Pacino. He got nationalized.
Yeah,
but that's another topic for another day. But if you go back to a lot of these so-called gangs of New York that were prominent in that time and era, especially in the 50s, 40s, 50s, 60s, a lot of them was coming through a lot of Moorish group to get that Al on their, titles for them to even do business in the public forum.
Well, for the in order for you to be made a made man, you have to be able to trace your lineage back to the first Moor and the blue-eyed, blonde-haired woman that brought about the existence of the Sicilians and the Italians.
Islam.
You have to be able to trace yourself back to that. If you can't trace yourself back to that, you can't be a made man.
That's why they call her the Black Madonna.
That's right. That's right. Let's get back on topic. Islam, sister, go back. Go ahead with section B. Sister McCarr, can you hear me?
Yes, to develop self-government, take due account of the political aspirations of the peoples, and to assist them in the progressive development of their free political institutions, according to the particular circumstances of each territory and its peoples and their varying stages of advancement.
Why am I going over this? The reason why I'm going over this is because I'm trying to show you all that it's really a done deal. It's just really a matter of patience, continue checking the boxes. We've got the Wazir Regional Council, which is a domestic convention, right, for our Moroccan states to become interdependent states versus a bunch of autonomous independent states. Become interdependent, and that's what's called a legal nature that establishes your position as an erga omnes parties, right? That convention brings us into the position of erga omnes parties, so that we can then bring forth that a lawsuit, the class action lawsuit, which is erga omnes parties against the United States under a declaration of intervention for intervening, right, with the case on behalf of AMPAG. Because whatever their charges are that they're putting on the United States, their pain points is our pain points. If they don't, if the United States is refusing to relinquish extraterritoriality based on the consular court orders from AMPAG, then they're doing that to they're doing the same to us as well. If they continue their belligerence against AMPAG, they're doing the same to us as well. AMPAG's injury is our injury. That's erga omnes partes.
That's right.
So to develop self-government, to take due account of the political aspirations of the peoples. So it's calling for us to develop self-government and for them to take account of the political aspirations of the peoples, of the Moors, and to assist them in the progressive development of their free political institutions. What is your free political institution? Your free national government, your free national constitution, your 3 branches of government. So they have to assist them, they have to assist us in the progressive development of our free political governments, according to the particular circumstances of each territory that's being reclaimed. AMPAG has one specific circumstance, one particular circumstance. AMPAC has one particular circumstance. DMT has their own particular circumstances. Moru has their own particular circumstance. AMPAM has their own particular circumstances within their territory that they're reclaiming. And its peoples and their varying stages of advancement. We're all going through our varying stages of advancement as we come into statehood again, come back into statehood again under international law. They have to assist us as we go through this. So really, they're supposed to be assisting us right now. We shouldn't even have to take them to the ICJ. They're supposed to say, okay, let me check to make sure that you have full powers that's found in good and due form before we move forward. Let's see if you guys check the boxes. Okay, it looks like you did. All right, well, cool. We acquiesce. We were supposed to assist you as you're going through your varying stages of advancement. This is the ideas that we have presented. You guys review it, get back with us, amend it, revise it. Let's negotiate, find a way through this. That's how they're supposed to behave, according to this article. I mean, do you see that? I mean, I'm asking, this question is for the floor. What I just said about what they should be doing based on what part B is saying. Do you not see that? Do you guys see that?
Yes, I see that.
Yeah.
Islam, real quick. I can definitely see that, especially if we had Moors who were within the United States jurisdiction doing what the Prophet intended and being part and parcel of their government, things would get passed a lot easier. You feel me?
Mm-hmm.
Especially if they know the game plan.
Good point. But that's not even the case, right? But either way, this is what they got to do. But they're playing games right now. This is why we're pushing for the ICJ, because they're playing games. So now we're going to have the ICJ tell them to do it, because they've been ignoring the consular court orders. So AMPAC has already established due process of law. They went through mediation, arbitration, and then finally consular court came in. Consular court did not prevail. What's the next step? Petition the United Nations and its organ, its judicial organ, the ICJ, to give us a favorable judgment based on Moroccan law. They've already lost. Why? Because they were already giving this judgment, these orders, in the France versus United States case. They already told them that they fall under Moroccan law. They already told them that they must adhere to Moroccan law. So for them to present themselves at the ICJ again, all the judges are going to do is say, we've already told you we already gave you an order back in 1952. Why y'all standing before us? I need to clean this up. Go help the Moors. Part B of the charter, Article 73. You're supposed to be assisting them as they go through their varying stages of advancement. You shouldn't be standing before us at the ICJ. The only reason why you're standing before us at the ICJ is because you violated the consular court orders. Now take y'all butts back and fix it. Relinquish the jurisdiction. You've already enacted the bill. It's just waiting for the president to sign it Public Law 856. And he signs it when the time is appropriate. When is the time appropriate? When the three branches of government appear. Well, we're here. We're here. We've got 6 of them. Period. They're at a it's a losing battle for them. Go ahead, sister, part C.
To further international peace and security.
Continue.
To promote constructive measures of development, to encourage research, and to cooperate with one another, and when and where appropriate, with specialized international bodies with a view to the practical achievement of the social, economic, and scientific purposes set forth in this article.
They got to, so it's to promote constructive measures of development, encourage research, and to cooperate with one another. Diplomatic relations. We got to cooperate with one another. And when and where appropriate, with specialized international bodies, right? What are the specialized international bodies? One of which would be the United Nations and its order, with a view to the practical achievement of the social, economic, and scientific purposes set forth in this article. Continue, party.
You can move it up.
There you go.
To transmit regularly to the Secretary General for information purposes, subject to such limitation as security and constitutional considerations may require, statistical and other information of a technical nature relating to economic, social, and educational conditions in the territories for which they are respectively responsible, other than those territories to which chapters 12 and 13 apply.
Okay, so then the ICJ and the United Nations, they're going to drill the United States. Have you transmitted with us the existence of these states? Have you transmitted with us the judicial orders that you received from these states? If the answer is no, then you're in violation of Article 73, Part E. You see? But they can ask the same question of us, because we're supposed to transmit regularly with them as well. I'm telling you, man, it's a losing battle for these people. They haven't been transmitting. They've been stalling and denying and pretending like we ain't sent them nothing. They're scared, man. They don't want to, they know they got to relinquish the control over Morocco. That's what they want to hold on to, is the control, by holding on to the Moors in a subjugated status. Continue with their escheat and hypothecation. Well, they can't do it anymore. And they can't assassinate none of us. Why? Diplomatic relations. Immunities, what do you call it? Qualified immunities. Privileges and immunities. Something that Malcolm X didn't have. That's why they was able to assassinate him. Diplomatic immunities are some serious stuff. You can't violate that. That's a preemptory norm, not even a customary norm. It's at a higher level than customary. It's preemptory. Period. And we're more than prepared to take them to the ICC if we have to. If they violate the judgment from the ICJ, then we have to petition the ICC and get Joe Biden removed, or whoever the president is at the time, etc. All the heads of state, they got to go. They all must be removed. What's the succession of the state? Who's next up? Because it ain't going to be whoever the head of state is any longer. Man, you better sign that doggone Public Law 856. Period. All right, let's go back to the Act of Algeciras. Oh, Lord. I hate when my computer does this. Okay. All right, Act of Algeciras. Which one were, okay, right here. Chapter 3. So, because we're talking about economic liberty without any inequality, but first I wanted to make the point clear that that's where we're going. And the United States have no choice. They're stuck between a rock and a hard place. They signed on to these treaties, these contracts. Everyone else has backed out of the Act of Algeciras except for the United States. Why has the United States not backed out of it? Okay. This is the other version of the Act of Algeciras. We've already went over this. Let's go over it again, but we're not going to read the whole proclamation. So this is what you're seeing on the screen is a proclamation by the president at the time, Roosevelt. Where is it? It's at the bottom. Right here. Theodore Roosevelt. By the president, Elihu Root, Secretary of State. Where did we just see this name? Elihu Root. Okay. Right here. Mr. Root, Secretary of State. When the Hoffman Phillip, the charge d'affaires, was reporting back to Mr. Root. 1906. Elihu Root. This is the president, Theodore Roosevelt. So why did they not back out of the treaty? Okay, where is it at? I'm not going to read the whole thing. Might end up having to. I'll read it. Let's read it. And whereas the said General Act and additional protocols were signed by the plenipotentiaries of the United States of America under reservation of the following declaration. The government of the United States of America, having no political interest in Morocco, don't even have any political interest. They cannot get involved with the politics of our states. All they can do is sit back and watch and hope that it's not to their disadvantage. And no desire or purpose having animated it to take part in this conference, other than to secure for all peoples the widest equality of trade and privilege with Morocco. So they're seeking trade and privilege with Morocco. And to facilitate the institution of reforms, institution of reforms, according to the preamble, in that country, what country? Morocco, tending to ensure complete cordiality of intercourse without instability of administration within for the common good, declares that in acquiescing, so they acquiesced, okay, in acquiescing in the regulations and declarations of the conference, and then becoming a signatory to the General Act of Algeciras and to the additional protocols, subject to ratification according to constitutional procedure, and in accepting the application of those regulations and declarations to American citizens and interests in Morocco. It does so without assuming obligation or responsibility for the enforcement thereof. You see what he's saying? So they're seeking, and that's not the only part. They're seeking, where was it? Trade and privilege. Okay, there's another part in which here it is, I found it. So then he goes on to say, and whereas in giving its advice and consent to the ratification of the said General Act and additional protocols, the Senate of the United States resolved as part of this act of ratification that the Senate understands that the participation of the United States in the Algeciras Conference and in the formulation and adoption of the General Act and Protocol, which resulted therefrom, was with the sole purpose of preserving and increasing its commerce in Morocco. This is why they haven't backed out. They won't be able to partake in commerce in Morocco.
Because it benefits them. Yeah.
The protection as to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's not what it says here, but isn't that what it says in their constitution? Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? But it says here, the protection as to life, liberty, and property of its citizens residing or traveling therein, and of aiding by its friendly offices and efforts in removing friction and controversy which seem to menace the peace between the powers signatory with the United States to the Treaty of 1880, the Treaty of Madrid. So this is the point that I was getting at. Life, liberty, and property. What else did it say over here at the top? Privilege. Where is it? Morocco and desire, the purpose, animated. Okay, here it is. Trade and privilege with Morocco. So they're seeking trade and privilege, and they're also seeking life, liberty, and property. This is why they haven't backed out of the Act of Algeciras. This is why they acquiesced to it. Well, in order for you to maintain liberty, life, liberty, and property, you have to do what? This is a question for the floor. In order for them to maintain peace, life, liberty, and property, the privileges to do business in Morocco, what's the stipulation? What do they have to do in order to maintain those privileges? Anybody? Okay, I'll answer.
Islam assent to the treaties.
Yes, Islam.
No.
They have to honor the consular court notifications.
Yes and no. In order for them to maintain their privileges and their life, liberty, and property, they got to pay taxes.
That was my first thought, and then I said, nah.
They got to pay taxes. That's what they got to do. They got to pay taxes. If they don't pay taxes, they're violating they're violating everything. The ICJ, I was just talking to Jay today. We were talking about the ICJ. The ICJ told them that they have to pay taxes.
Even the case with France said that.
That's what I'm talking about. The ICJ, in the case of France, they told them that they're not immune from taxes. That means that they, when you pay taxes, who do you pay taxes to? The sovereign authority.
Mm-hmm.
Which means they lack sovereignty. Who are the sovereign authorities? The Sharifian authority.
And who are the taxes going to right now?
Exactly.
Something about over there in Europe or something?
Yes, Great Britain and the Pope.
So they never, if the taxes are going to Great Britain, then that means they never left Great Britain, huh?
No, they have an agreement, a treaty with Great Britain.
Oh, so they have to pay Great Britain taxes for being here?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Remember, there was that war. That's part of the reason
So
for the
they're going to pay Great Britain for taxes for being here, and pay us taxes for being here.
Islam, can I just give a brief history on what happened? If you look at 1865, it was known as the Stamp Act. You would see that created the friction between the British subjects and what they called the, American colonies and the Aboriginal people on the land. What was the issue? This is what kicked off the what they called the American Revolution, because they were now having to pay not only taxes to us, but now the taxes that Europe were charging them, inflated.
Mm-hmm.
So it's known as the Stamp Act, in which the European legislation passed to kind of censor the what they call the certificates of fiat that was circulating at that time, and where they could be redeemed.
Yeah, that's a rock and a hard place. You got to pay them coming and going.
Well, they've been paying taxes, right?
That's the Boston Tea Party. That's why they threw all of that stuff off. They was upset that they was being taxed
and dressed up as somebody else, trying to pin it on somebody else.
But what's the point though? They've been paying taxes. They've just been paying taxes to the wrong sovereign. So it's just a matter of redirecting the finance. This is what's called instituting reforms based on economic and financial reforms. There's 6 of them: administrative, judicial, educational, economic, financial, and military reforms. So the economic and financial reforms mean that we got to reform how the taxes are traveling. It's traveling in the wrong direction, baby. It's supposed to go to us. Act of concession for a state bank. Moors are struggling with bank loans and stuff, and we're supposed to own the banks. Sister Macabre, what does Article 31 say? Could you go on into that?
A bank shall be established in Morocco under the name of the State Bank of Morocco.
Oh, sorry. Shoot. Okay.
To exercise the following specified rights.
All right. What are those rights? Go ahead.
Which are granted to it by His Majesty the Sultan for a period of 40 years to date from the ratification of this act.
Continue. What, 32?
Article 32, the bank, which will have power, carry on all transactions entering into the operations of a bank, shall have the exclusive privilege of issuing notes to bearer, payable on presentation and receivable for public dues throughout the Moorish Empire.
Well, which empire? The Moorish Empire, huh?
Mhm.
Not the American Empire. So we're supposed to be issuing notes, which means we're supposed to be minting all the currency. Economic liberty without any inequality. This is where we're headed to more. Keeping in mind, it's not about the money. It's about governing the vast empire. Continue, sister. The bank shall.
The bank shall maintain for a period of 2 years, to date from its going into operation, cash on hand at least equal to half its notes in circulation and equal to at least 1/3 after the expiration of said period of 2 years. At least 1/3 of such cash on hand is to be gold bullion or gold coin.
Oh, whether the Constitution,
Islam.
the Constitution from the United States get this gold and silver coin from? The Act of Algeciras. Well, they didn't even get it from the Act of Algeciras because they already established their constitution prior to it. But that's been a thing in the Moroccan Empire anyway. And somebody said Islam because they love in the fact that it's supposed to be based in gold bullion or gold coin. But we don't know about
Absolutely.
It was known as the Mexican peso, which was our kindred, which was known also as the Yakum dollar, which was the gold and silver.
Absolutely.
See? Go ahead, sister, 33.
The bank shall, to the exclusion of every other bank or establishment of credit, discharge the duty of dispersing treasurer of the empire. To this end, the Moorish government shall take all necessary measures.
Which government? I don't think you read that right. Did you read that again? Which government are we referring to? The American government?
To this end, the Moorish government
The Moorish government. Continue.
shall take all necessary measures to deposit in the bank proceeds of the custom revenues, exclusive of the part thereof applied to the loan of 1904, and such other revenues as it may designate.
Continue.
With reference to the special tax established in order to carry out certain public works, the Moorish government must have the same deposit in the bank, as well as the revenues it may later pledge for its loans. The bank being especially charged with the payments thereon, except, however, in the case of the loan of 1904, which was governed by special contract.
Look at that. With reference to the special tax established in order to carry out certain public works. That's chapter 6. The Moorish government must have this. The Moorish government must have the same deposited in the bank. So we got to have the same amount as the special tax deposited in the bank, as well as the revenues it may later pledge for its loans, the bank being especially charged with the payment thereon, except, however, in the case of the loan of 1904. So the bank doesn't have to pay the bank through the state does not have to pay for that loan. It's being paid on a special contract. That's why it says, except, however, in the case of the loan of 1904, which is governed by special contract. So that's already taken care of. Whatever that might look like. But it's the Moorish government's responsibility to control these banks, which includes the IMF, which is also here in Morocco, in DC. The United Nations is in Morocco, and the Empire State, hint to the New York Moors, to have a Moroccan state government reclaim the territory of New York is one of the most powerful chess moves that we can have in this statehood movement. Because who would be in your territory? The headquarters of the United Nations will be in your territory under Moroccan law. They have qualified immunities, the officers of the United Nations, but they're not the belligerent body. the belligerent body is the United States. But to have a Moroccan state established reclaiming the New York Trust territory, and the same in which the United Nations is operating, their headquarters, that's a powerful chess move. Hint, 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 I wink, Moors, New York Moors.
I hear you, brother. That's that overseeing now what's going on in your own backyard. I hear you, brother.
Right, they're right there in your front yard. Go ahead, brother. Come in. I see you got your hands raised. You ain't got to raise your hands, brother. Just chime on in.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, like, I never just really thought from that perspective, but I hear a lot of Temple Moors that have such a negative attitude towards, the United Nations in general. But if they looked at it from that perspective, they would really understand the magnitude of the power that's in their hands. They wouldn't look, so negative towards the United Nations if they thought from a territory, an international standpoint, than an individual, a standpoint that they've been in the matrix. With that idea.
That's based on misconceptions and misinformation. The United Nations is the devil.
Yeah, because they don't understand what the United Nations role is, like what they're actually in place, like to do, and that, like you said, Brother Abdul, that's a misconception. Like they need to understand like what their place is and what they're actually in position for. Like, I refer to them as like a referee to an extent. They're making sure that the guidelines that are in place are everything is being operated based off of the rules. And our people don't understand that, so they look at it from a negative perspective because they think that it's something else, when really that's the vehicle we use to put everything in motion that we need to. The boxes that we need to check, they need to be applied through the United Nations because that's what they're there for. I yield.
Is it that they don't know, or is it that they're put there specifically to mislead the people, so the people would not become cognizant, conscious of the direction that they need to go to resume their birthright and their earthright? It's
That's
more
what I believe.
it's not that they don't know, it's co-intel, it's imposters sitting in places of, quote unquote church leader, if I may say. So most people are accustomed to looking to a so-called religious deity to point them to a god. So these Temple Moor leader use that same demise to conquer the mind of the people.
Islam.
Not only.
I agree with that. That might be something that's possible as well. Like, I'm on the fence with that as well. Like, I don't know who knows and who, like you said, is COINTELPRO. Like, they could be playing both sides of the fence. So we need to identify those individuals, and decipher or disseminate, who knows and who doesn't know, because I agree with that wholeheartedly. I feel like that there's a certain amount of information that, has been expressed to the public that, is only like small victories, certain ceilings that's not allowing us to get to where we need to go. And they're holding us back for a reason. I do believe wholeheartedly that there are people involved that are holding our people back and don't want us to know this statehood information and this international law information.
That's absolutely so. But part of the blame still fall on the Moors. I'm gonna tell you why. The reason being, and I'm speaking from experience, I'm throwing myself in that bag as well. We were in blind fellowship. Oh, such and such said that the United Nations is the devil, so that's where it ends. Well, when were we gonna say, okay, well, let me go read the charter and see what the United Nations say about themselves? And if you did, you'll come to realize that they're talking about international peace and security, not FEMA camps and New World Order crap, Illuminati, Rothschild stuff, and Rockefellers. That's the misconcept. We think that it was established by the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds, and it was established to bring in FEMA camps and bring back the concentration camps and enslave everybody. But when you read the charter yourself, it says something totally different. In fact, the exact opposite. So that was our fault for falling into blind fellowship instead of taking on scholarship and going taking the time to read the charter ourselves, keeping in mind also that we're being hypocritical because we stand in our square on the rights of indigenous people, which come from the United Nations. So you can have it both ways. They can't be the devil and offering you the rights of indigenous peoples. Come on, Morris. We've been tricked. We've been tricked out of our fezzes really bad. We're in a bad. Go ahead.
I want to add this in. So the other Kadi, her relatives from Chicago, and he's a Moorish American, Temple Moor. But like this, how they got us cornered. So he has documentation that has like diplomat on there. Well, like just say Temple Moors, you get these credentials and you try to pass these credentials, and boom, they got you. You're a person named an officer, but he has no even concept of international law or what a diplomat even pertains to.
Mm-hmm. That's right, because a diplomat is an officer of the state, not an officer of a temple or any form of organization, and certainly not a website. A diplomat is an officer of a state that's composed of 3 branches of government with a ratified and deposited constitution, which establishes your full powers, and you must be found in good and due form. It's a few boxes to check to stand your square as a diplomat, and it comes from the state, not from an organization or a temple or a church or anything of that sort.
Islam, brother. I think the misunderstanding, and I even attest to, me being misguided under my own ignorance at times when I looked at, the United Nations and how the structure operated. We got to look up these words when it talks about depository and inhabitants. These are key words and fundamental words on international law. So depository doesn't give one what they say a creed or what they say authentication for those Moors that know about that authentication over you. A depository now is just an acceptance of, the regulations or the format of the procedures, how to apply or to record, documentations on international levels. So we got to look at that. And that's where a lot of us, like you stated before, misguided underneath the Illuminati or the Rothschilds, or they're having, ownership. Yes, when it comes to the IMF, that's it. We all know that, right? When it comes to fiat currencies around the world, if any currency is dealing with a note, we talking the francs, the yen, the ruby, the dollars, any fiat currency, the note is attached to the IMF. That's clear, but that's not the money. That is called, substitute money. So we got to understand the difference with that and the depository.
To clarify for you real quick, though, even under those circumstances, the IMF still falls under our jurisdiction and authority.
Oh, absolutely.
And so what we're supposed to do is institute economic and financial reforms to bring it out of that fiat status and bring it into, what did it say? Let's go back up. What's part of the reforms? We just read it. At least 1/3 of such cash on hand is to be gold bullion or gold coin. You got to make it de jure currency with gold bullion and gold coin. But where is our gold bullions? Who's holding on to that? Where is it? In the basement of the Vatican's basement? Under the Pentagon? Where is it? You see, so before we could even make it de jure, we still need our gold back. In the meantime, as we're going through these varying stages of advancement, we would have to maintain control over the fiat. See, we're emerging out of conquest. We're emerging out of colonialism. And it's a process. Colonialism took its full form in phases. It was a process. And we're coming out of it with the same phase and the same process, but going backwards. This is where uti-positive jurisdiction comes in, the succession of states. The succession states from colonialism. It's a reverse.
That makes sense, because as it shall be done, so it shall be undone.
That's right. The prophet said that we fell based on science and we got to rise back up based in science. What science? Jurisprudence. Not biology, not metaphysics, not even the zodiac. Jurisprudence. International law is another aspect of Moorish science that we've never, we never went down that rabbit hole. That's a higher level of jurisprudence. It controls all the planets, the nation states on the planet. Starting from where? The diplomatic body in Tangier, which then became the League of Nations and then now the United Nations. Let's continue with the read so we can finish up the read. We got a few more things to cover. I don't want to keep getting off track. Go ahead, Sister 34.
The banks shall be the financial agent of the government, both within and without the empire, without prejudice to the government's right to apply to other banking houses or establishments of credit for its public loans. The bank, however, shall enjoy, in regard to such loans, a right of preference, other conditions being equal, over any banking or credit establishment.
Continue.
For treasury notes or other short-term notes which the Moorish government may wish to negotiate without making it a public issue, the bank shall, however, be charged to the exclusion of every other establishment with negotiating the same for the account of the Moorish government, either in Morocco or abroad. Can you rephrase that? Could you rephrase that?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna go into that. So it says
Okay.
for treasury notes or other short-term notes, which the Moorish government may wish to negotiate. I mean, there's not even really much to discern here or to interpret, but it says it's pretty straightforward. For treasury notes or other short-term notes, which the Moorish government, see what's the key word, the Moorish government may wish to negotiate without making it a public issue. The bank shall, however, be charged to the exclusion of every other establishment with negotiating the same for the account of the Moorish government, either in Morocco or abroad. So whether we're in Morocco, go ahead.
So when it says negotiate without making it a public issue, what do they mean? That it's a private matter? This negotiation, is that what it's saying?
Yes,
Okay.
it's a private
And that
matter.
the public is not involved with it in any way?
That's correct.
Okay.
As the government, but it's incumbent upon us to make sure that our negotiation is to the benefit of the people nonetheless. So the people are supposed to be able to sit back and relax without having to worry about their government officials selling them out. We're supposed to do things based in love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, and for the upliftment of fallen humanity, which takes away from selfishness. It's not about, this is why the Constitution is set up in such a way for how do I put this? The reclamation of our vast estate as each individual national, meaning that we get 40% of the revenues, 60% goes to the state. So if you're getting 40% of the revenue, your pocket is well lined up. You have you're not at risk, right, to be bought off. You can't buy me off. Like, you know what it's going to take to buy me off? I'm getting 3 comma checks. So now financial issues is out the way. What's left? Your financial issues, your personal financial issues, you and your family, that's taken care of. What's next? It makes it easier now for you to focus on the people.
That's right. That's right, making the world a better place. That's right.
Start making the world a better place with the 60% that comes into the state. The 60% is used to manage the state, but also to help the people of the world, to end poverty, to end homelessness, etc.
And that's how you secure your own good fortune, is by making sure it's all over the place.
That's right. We're supposed to share the wealth. That's where we come. That's where the institution of reforms for economic and financial, the economic and financial system, the reforms of that's where this comes into play.
Islam.
Nobody should be homeless. Nobody should be dealing with poverty.
That's right. That's
Nobody
right.
should be a paycheck away from eviction. Go ahead, brother. Someone had an interest?
Islam, brother. Yeah, this is Mufti here.
Islam, Mufti.
That goes toward our social duties.
Right.
You know, it's reciprocal. And see, we can alleviate the pain of a brother or sister by being able to help them out. You know?
That's right.
Yeah.
Islam. Let's touch one more article, then we go on to a few other articles. We're not going to touch everything. We've already did what, 3 or 4. It was a 3 or 4 part series on the Act of Algeciras. So obviously we're not going to go over the whole thing. We just want to touch on a few principles to point out economic liberty without any inequality.
Hey, brother, before we move on past this article, can we just tap back up to Article 31? You know, just in reference, and maybe you can get an explanation for that, where it goes into the term of the bank. It says a bank shall be established in Morocco under the name of this quote unquote state of Morocco to exercise the following specific rights, which are granted to it by His Majesty, the Sultan, for a period of 40 years to date from the ratification of this act. So the question is the 40 years and the ratification, is that now a new national trust needs to be erected every 40 years, or is it now what they say, a renewal every 40 years? You know, how does that now take, you know,
That's a great question. I don't have an answer for that. I have to look into that one. But I'll definitely have the answer to this on the next call.
Islam, peace and love.
That's a great question. Which are granted to it by His Majesty the Sultan for a period of 40 years to date from the ratification of this act. The interesting part about it is, if you're talking about 40 years from the ratification of the act, which was in 1906, if you add 40 years to it, you're looking at 1946, which is now the establishment of the Charter, United Nations Charter. That's an interesting point. But as far as to answer your question, I'll have to get back with you on that, good brother. I don't know the answer to that one, but I will have it on the next call.
Islam,
so remind me on the next call. Islam,
brother.
Yeah, but it could be what you're saying, but I don't want to guess, because I'm not going to have a reference point to go back to, because I don't like doing things, answering questions without reference points. So we'll get back to that on the next call. But good question nonetheless. All right, go ahead, sister, on 35. I think we're going to end with 35, possibly.
The bank shall make advances to the Moroccan government on account current up to 1 million francs, chargeable against treasury receipts. The bank shall likewise open a credit account for the government for the period of 10 years to date from its establishment, such account not to exceed 2/3 of its initial capital.
See, that takes away the language in this Moroccan banking system, which, by the way, it says Moroccan government. The bank shall make advances to the Moroccan government. I have to point those things out. But it's killing. What I'm saying, though, is killing the fractionalized banking system that's currently in place, where they can own 10 times more than they have on reserves. That's the policy of the Federal Reserve. They use fractionalized banking process. This is killing that, because it's saying that it's telling you the amount that you're supposed to have in comparison. The bank shall likewise open a credit account for the government for the period of 10 years to date from its establishment, such account not to exceed 2/3 of its initial capital. That's killing the fractionalized banking system that they have in place right now. Go ahead and continue reading this right here till the end, and then we'll move on to another article.
This credit account shall be distributed over several years and employed primarily for the expenses of establishing and maintaining the bodies of police, organized in conformity to the decisions adopted by the conference, and secondly, for the expenses of such works of public interest as might not be charged to the special fund as provided for by the following article. Maximum rate of these two advances will be 7%, bank commission included, and the bank may ask the government to give as security and equal amount in treasury notes.
I mean, what economic liberty without any inequality? Continue.
Question, brother.
Yeah.
Apologies of, family. That sounds like a fiscal budget to me, because that's the same thing the United States do with their fiscal budgets that allocate funds towards their government and administrative bodies, for the year prior to the actual, appointments or official duties. So, it looks like a fiscal budget.
Yeah.
Islam, brother. You see, we got Moors that just be knowing stuff. And we need Moors like that in the state to come to the round table to bring their ideas, their expertise, their opinions in conformity with what the WRC is doing. This is what we need. This is glorious, to say the least. I appreciate that point of interest, good brother. Continue, sister.
If before the expiration of the said term of 10 years, the Moorish government should contract a loan, the bank would have the right to obtain the immediate reimbursement of its advances made in accordance with the second paragraph of the present article.
I mean, that's economic liberty. Obviously, there's more. You guys can pull up the Act of Algeciras on your own and go through it further. But let's move on to another chapter real quick. Let's go to chapter 4. Oh, what happened here? Let me move this thing.
Interest is almost remind you like a petty cash, for the government agency to make sure it's funded for the administration.
That's right. That's what it sounds like as well. Yes. And obviously we're talking banking language. I'm not a banker. Who's a banker here? So we need subject matter experts in the banking field to come in to dissect the 58 articles within chapter 3 of the Act of Algeciras, which is the banking. Right. And so that we can then implement it competently based on the proper understanding coming from subject matter experts who dealt with the banking system in their careers. But from a surface level understanding, it's clear that we're supposed to have control and authority over the banking. Am I right or wrong, Morris?
Right. I wonder if we could construct a spreadsheet based on this information and just put in some fictitious numbering and see how that works.
You could.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Numbers. We can use real numbers and numbers that the United States has.
You could use the US debt clock numbers, and you could actually get your, what they say, your forecast is what they say, in banking.
You see the excellence on this call from the Moors? The Moors are brilliant, man. We just been misguided for the past, I don't know how many years, but now that we're back on the right track, as we continue over a period of time, the brilliancy is just going to increase and increase and increase. And we're just going to be a force to be reckoned with, because we've already done it before. It's in our DNA. Right now, going over these treaties, going over these documents and talking about these principles is unlocking the knowledge that's already built in within you. It's already built in. This is ancient stuff. We've been here, we've been done that. We've just been subjugated for a little time, We've been conquered for a little time. We've been colonized for a specific amount of time. Okay, no problems, no worries. That's coming to an end. That's coming to an end. And now our DNA will now have an opportunity to unlock itself. And oh my God, you talk about Habu properties. You talk about the 8 wonders of the world. Ain't no 8 wonders or 7 wonders, however many they claim there is. There's way more than that. There's like hundreds of wonders of the world. There's many of which they don't speak about. Many of which exist right here in Morocco. Right here. The Grand Canyon is one of the wonders of the world, for crying out loud. There are immovable objects down there. You can't even move it, which means it's always been there. It's never been moved. We're talking about temples, the Isis temple and the Osiris temple and the Heru,
Yep.
etc.
Facts.
Yeah, that's why some of them areas they got off limits. Yep.
Facts.
See? That's why this is the old Egypt, this land.
Yeah.
That's why we had to get permission from the pharaohs of Egypt. We ain't talking about Egypt over there, we're talking about Egypt over here. Northwest of Exum, the North Gate. Al Aqsa, Morocco up the farthest west. All right, so we're gonna go in now we're gonna touch on the tax revenues real quick, right? Hit number 59, sister. Well, first read the title.
A declaration concerning a better return of taxes and the creation of new revenues. Article 9, as soon as the tariff shall have been put into regular operation with regard to Moorish subjects, the representatives of the powers at Tangier shall subject their citizens, subjects, and proteges in the empire to the application thereof. But it is understood that this tax shall not be applied to foreign subjects except.
Okay, so real quick, a tertib is a tax. It's a form of a taxation. And as you see here, who's being taxed? As soon as the tertib shall have been put into regular operation with regard to Moorish subjects. So this ain't even talking about nationals, right? It's talking about Moorish subjects.
Citizens and subjects and proteges.
And proteges and citizens, right? Citizens are the United States citizens. They're the only ones who are citizens. We're either nationals or subjects. That's what Hoffman Phillip told Mr. Root. Right? Continue. Let me scroll down for you.
Under the conditions stipulated by the regulation of the diplomatic body at Tangier on November 24th, 1903.
Okay, you heard what it said right there on part A. Under the conditions stipulated by the regulation of the diplomatic body at Tangier, where Hoffman Phillip was in 1906 when he was reporting to Mr. Root dealing with the expatriation document. That's what I was talking about earlier, the diplomatic body, which became the League of Nations and then became the United Nations. But the diplomatic body was the original body. It was still in existence in 1903. Continue.
At places where it shall effectively be collected from more subjects. The consular authorities shall retain a certain percentage of the receipt of the taxes they collect from those subject to their jurisdiction to cover the cost of tax bills and collection. The rate of such percentage shall be fixed by the mutual agreement between the Moxon and the diplomatic body at Tangier.
So there's no more diplomatic body in Tangier. So now we will be between the Moxon and who? The United Nations. Come on now. This is economic liberty without any inequality. This is the kind of finance we're going to be bringing in. Taxing everybody, including Moorish subjects, citizens, and proteges.
What's so interesting, brother, about that 1903? If you look at the Secretary of State, when it comes to birth certificates, that's when they accepted those as bond instruments as far as the Secretary of State, to where now you see it lines up as far as Moorish subjects. In Europe, this was known as a war bond. You know, these were war bonds for people that was taking allegiance under other protectorate rights of other nations. Over here, which was being legislated within the United States, it was now being brought towards the birth certificates in 1903. And I'm just yielding with that as far as information.
Good time, brother. I appreciate that. Excellent points of interest. I'm skipping through some of these articles. I'm looking for something in particular. Okay. All right, read 61. Wait, before you read 61, I'm trying to use some germane points here. Let's begin with 60. Go ahead with 60.
In accordance with the right granted by Article 11 of the Madrid Convention, foreigners.
Okay, hold it right there. So in Article 11 of the Madrid Convention, they're talking, what this is referring to is where they gave the colonists the right to hold property and expand across Morocco and things of that nature. It basically legalized or allowed the further colonization of Morocco by allowing them to expand. That's why they went from the 13 colonies all the way over to California and then erecting buildings and holding property. That's what it's referring to in Article 11 of the Madrid Convention. Continue.
Foreigners shall have the right to acquire property throughout the Sharifan Empire, and His Majesty the Sultan shall issue to his administrative and judicial offices such instructions as may be necessary for them not to refuse registration of deeds without lawful cause. Subsequent transfers, either by deeds between living parties or by death, shall continue without hindrance. In the ports open to commerce and within a radius of 10 kilometers around such ports, His Majesty the Sultan, generally and without it being necessary henceforth for foreign subjects to obtain a special permission for each purchase of property, now grants the consent required by Article 11 of the Madrid Convention.
Continue.
At Qasr el Kabir, Azila, Azimur, and eventually in other towns of the coast or the interior, the general authorization stated above is likewise granted to foreigners, but only for purchasers within a radius of 2 kilometers around those towns.
Continue.
Wherever foreigners may have acquired property, they will be permitted to erect buildings in compliance with regulations and usage. Before authorizing the execution of deeds or transferring property, Qadi will have to satisfy himself of the validity of the title in conformity to the Mohammedan law.
Pause.
Allodial titles.
I wanted you to read all that to get to that. So yes, you got the right to hold property. You had the right to erect buildings. However, before authorizing the execution of deeds for transferring property, the Qadi will have to satisfy himself of the validity of the title in conformity with the Mohammedan laws. Period. So yeah, you got the right to do that, but it still goes through us. Our Qadi would still have to be satisfied with the validity of the title or the deed. And if it's not so, if it's fraudulent, we got a problem. So if we were to go, so if the Qadi was to go back and do an audit on all the past transactions, real estate transactions, they got a problem, don't they? Because it wasn't done as the Act of Algeciras states, because the Moorish government wasn't in place to enforce these articles. So it was our fault, but we can always go back and fix it.
Question.
Go ahead, brother.
I'm looking at the words before authorizing the execution of deeds for transferring property, right? Then it says the Qadi will have to satisfy himself the validity of the title, meaning that the deed will be the maintenance of any foreigners that's operating of the land. The Qadi would have to create an allodial title, right, to now satisfy what that lease agreement is dealing with as far as dealing with Mohammedanism law.
Well, they won't create an allodial title for them.
No, not for them. Not for them. The Qadi has to record an allodial title for the land as far as who's maintaining the deed, not the land, but the deed.
Islam. You see? So we're still involved in this process. They can't just do as they see fit, but they've been doing so because we've been acquiescing, we've been asleep. Continue finishing up that last paragraph.
The Moxen shall designate in each city and district specified in this article, Qadi, who shall have a charge of such verification.
Okay. You could go to 61.
With a view to creating new resources for the Moxen, the conference recognizes in principle that a tax may be established on city buildings.
Bingo. So we live in Atlanta, right? AMPAG jurisdiction, Ante, Georgia. They got all types of big, beautiful, pretty buildings around here. And I just drive around looking at all these buildings like taxes.
Yeah, I do the same thing. I do. I see all the new ones coming up. I'm thinking, chat money. Yep, I see the same thing. Taxes. Yep.
All over. Article 61, with a view to creating new resources for the Moxen. With a view to creating new resources for the Moxen. Connotatively, a Moxen is a Moorish government or state. Denotatively is the royal government that surrounds the Sultan or whatever monarchy and operates on its behalf. No different than the Parliament for the King of England or the Queen of England, right? The Parliament would be the Moxen. But there is no more Sultan, so the Moxen would be utilizing the connotative perspective, meaning that it's just a Moroccan state or government. So all of our several states, possible 7, are Moxens, right? So with a view to creating new resources for the Moxen for our Moroccan states, the conference recognizes in principle that a tax may be established on city buildings. And the city buildings all over this joint that they erected. So if you go back to the previous article, they were allowed to erect all these buildings, but they got to pay taxes on it. So remember the question that I asked earlier, right? Dealing with their right to life, liberty, and property. What's the requirements for them to maintain such commerce? They got to pay taxes.
Yeah.
You see? Go ahead, continue.
Where did I leave off?
A part of the receipt.
Oh, thank you. A part of the receipts thus realized shall be set aside for the requirements of municipal streets and hygiene, and generally for the expense of improvement and conservation of the cities. The tax is due from the Moorish or foreign owner without distinction, but the tenant or the holder of the key shall be responsible to the Moorish treasury.
Ah, the tenant or the holder of the key. And who is the holder of the key? What do you call him? What is his title for the Federal Reserve?
Trustee?
No. Like Alan Greenspan was one of them.
Holder of the key.
Yeah, I forgot their title. You remember when Obama gave these guys $800 billion during the 2008 crash? And then or in negotiation with the head of the Federal Reserve. What do they call him? What is that position?
Brother, I thought it was called the director.
The director of the Federal Reserve. Doesn't ring a bell.
But then you have the Alan Greenspan was.
Isn't that Janet Yellen's position right now?
Yeah.
As far as the Secretary of Treasury for the United States?
Correct. That's the
yeah, that's Janet Yellen. Currently, that is Janet Yellen right now, Secretary of Treasury for the United States Department of Treasury.
And so it says that the tax is due from the Moorish or foreign owner without distinction, but the tenant or the holder of the key shall be responsible to the Moorish treasury. So Janet Yellen is responsible to our Moorish treasury.
Can I just give them the proof of that? If anybody looks at a $1 US Federal Reserve note and you look at the back and see those 2 seals, you'll see that there's accounts being what they said accounted for. There's 2 signatures. One that says the United States Secretary of Treasury, and the other one says Secretary of State. It doesn't say for who, but it just says the Secretary of State to show that the validity of what that very signifies in that portion of the treaty is speaking about.
Wow. Go ahead and read number 63.
Sharifin delegates have stated that Habu property or certain state property, notably buildings of the Moxen, occupied at a rent of 6%, are held by persons subject to foreign jurisdiction without regular title or by virtue of contracts subject to revision. The conference, desirous of remedying this state of affairs, charges the diplomatic body at Tangier to solve questions equitably in accord with the special commissioner whom his Sharifdin Majesty may be pleased to designate to that effect.
The Sharifin delegates have stated that Habu property or certain state property notably buildings of the Moxon, occupied at a rental of 6%. So what's the governor here? Brian Kemp. He operates the Capitol building. Well, you got to pay 6% because the Capitol building is a Habu property. There are churches, these ancient Catholic churches and buildings and courthouses and museums, etc. Habu property. They got to pay 6%. Wherever you see a Habu property, which they're easy to see because they're limestone and they just got a different architecture. It's Moorish architecture. You can tell it's a glaring difference. When you see those buildings, think 6%. Economic liberty without any inequality. They're supposed to pay 6% to occupy those buildings. What are we talking about here? And so we're Moorish Americans, which I was once, Moors in general, Black people even. We complain about the right to travel, right? Mortgage issues, taxes, little stuff, child support. But in actuality, our concern should be the great empire, the great enterprise, the vast estate. It solves everything all at once with the snap of a finger. Thanos.
That's like, how they talk about the gangs, especially back in the day where they would fight over their corners.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And who's charged with this? The diplomatic body at Tangier, which means now it's the United Nations. You see, come on. What else we have here? Okay, right here. Read 65.
Conference adheres to the proposition proposed by the Moorish delegation to create, with the assistance of the diplomatic body, a stamp tax on contracts and notarial acts brought before aduls, a maximum transfer tax of 2% on sales of real estate.
Oh, that right there. So part A, I'm not sure what that means. A stamp tax on contracts and notarial acts brought before aduls. Okay, not sure what that means, but I'll tell you, I know what the hell part B means. What? Who said something? Somebody said something? Okay, I thought someone had a point of interest. A maximum transfer tax of 2% on sales of real estate. So every time there's a real estate closing, they're supposed to pay us 2% sales tax on those closings. Transfer tax. So disregard all the taxes and the Habu property. Just that revenue alone is immense. It's ridiculous. The average value of a house in Atlanta is around $300,000. They probably have at least 10,000 transactions a month. 2% of each one of those. And that's just houses. That doesn't include commercial and industrial buildings, skyscrapers and such. Buildings that are closing in on millions of dollars. 2% of all that. In Atlanta, when you drive, Atlanta has a homeless problem, and it's nothing to find a Moor or a group of Moors camped out next to a Habu property or any building, and they're homeless. Sleeping right next to the building, sleeping on the walls, leaning on the walls to sleep. You know how painful that is when I see that?
I know it is painful. It's painful when I see it anywhere.
It's like you're leaning on money that belongs to you, and you don't even realize it, and you're just homeless. That's a tough pill to swallow when you know the truth. It's ridiculous. 2% sales taxes, transfer taxes on every transaction.
A stamp tax is a individual tax that's on a property, on an individual property, a tax on an individual property.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, brother. I should have known that. In fact, I didn't know that. The stamp tax on contracts and notarial acts brought before aduls. You can look
Yeah.
up what.
Let me get that stuff notarized, yep.
Yeah.
Let me get that stuff notarized, yep.
Yeah.
Abdul's is a public official.
Islam. Okay. You see? This is why I love these classes. Because we got others who got, I don't know it all. I don't know everything. I'm well versed in international law and in statehood, but it doesn't mean that I know everything.
Nobody does.
And nobody does. This is the reason why we can't, this is why we need a unified front, because we bring all of our knowledge together onto to one round table to discuss the matters and act accordingly based on the information that we've gathered as a body politic. That's how you move. You don't move as an individual. That's why I love the statehood movement, because it promotes unity.
Mm-hmm.
It brings us all together.
Yeah.
And, you know, in that process, we have a tendency to attract and bring in those who are bad actors, but that's the minority. And we can deal with them easily based on the Constitution, because the Constitution will prevail. If you violate the Constitution, you can be easily removed, impeached or removed, depending on whether you're an appointed officer or an elected officer. An appointed officer can be removed, fired, if you will, but an elected official has to be impeached. You have to go through a certain due process of law to make that happen, and it's got to be done right. I've been through it. AMPAG has gone through it. You've got other states going through it right now. And it's not going to stop. We're all going to continue going through these problems, because we're a conquered people who's coming into statehood, and we're bringing our bad habits with us. So it's like almost in the beginning, you have to clean up house. That happened to us. The first 2 months, we was already we already have, I got impeached. Whether it was a patently frivolous and arbitrary and capricious impeachment, as Jay Bay would say. It lacked judicial standing, but it still was an attempt. It was the same thing that happened with Jay Bay, with AMPAG, and Kanye Chauvin. This government is organized chaos. So we have to be well versed in due process of law and a clear understanding of the Constitution in order to tackle those problems when they do arise, if they do arise. Hopefully they don't, but they more than likely will, considering who we're dealing with. We're dealing with conquered Moors. What does Article 66 say real quick?
Merchandise of foreign origin shall temporarily be subject on entry into Morocco to special taxes amounting to 2.5% ad valorem.
2.5%. Merchandise of foreign origin shall temporarily be subject on entry into Morocco to special taxes amounting to 2.5% ad valorem. It's taxes on economic liberty, baby. Right? But you can't jump from sovereignty and independence into economic liberty. You have to go through the process. Sovereignty and independence is the easiest one. You can do that in 30 days. And we help do it for free. For free. I like to brag on that.
Question.
Yes, Brother Nasir.
Take into consideration this document was done 1906. Upon complete establishment of the Moroccan state empire here and having a centralized government, would it deem necessary to make amendment to the taxation volume?
Yes. Yes, it has to be in conformity with the new, with
rates
with
and stuff.
inflation and everything.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Good question. And also, where I thought you were going, everything is in arrears, which means it's going back to 1906. They owe taxes and all these things all the way back to 1906. Can't pay it. So what happened? Their assets become our assets. It's in salvage. It's in salvage. Is that the word? Salvage.
Yeah.
The salvage. Yeah, salvage.
What?
Right. It's in foreclosure. It's about to be repoed. All their tanks and their planes and their fighter jets and their military bases and their buildings and all that stuff. No worries, you can't pay this. You can't pay this loan. You can't pay these taxes. You can't, you know, in arrears going back to 1906. You owe too much. No worries. We'll take control of your military. We'll take control of all of your industry, all your banking and your, you know, this is what's making it possible. Jeff Bezos got a problem because Morocco owns what? Amazon.
But the truth is, brother, even at a 2%,
There's Bill Gates. What's his name? There's going to be a huge debt in their personal finance when we're done with them. They owe that much, and they will pay up. All right, so that's Article 4. Here you got chickpeas. You got there's 20% on chickpeas, 20% on corn, on barley, 34 on wheat. Like, come on, man. This is economic liberty. It's all here. Why we haven't learned about this? Look at Article 72. Read Article 72 real quick.
Opium and kif will continue to be a monopoly of the Sharifian government. Importation of opium, specially intended for medicinal purposes, will, however, be allowed by special permit issued by the Moxen at the request of the legation, the physician, or the apothecary importing the same. The Sharifian government and the diplomatic body shall jointly determine the maximum quantity which may thus be introduced.
So we're going to jail for marijuana, and we have authority and monopoly over marijuana. Opium and kif. Kif is marijuana. Opium and kif will continue to be a monopoly of the Sharifian government. The importation of opium, specially intended for medicinal purposes, will, however, be allowed by special permit issued by who? The Moxen, at the request of the legation. What do they mean by that? So remember, we went over the diplomatic body and the several legations. So the ambassador or plenipotentiary or charge d'affaires or whatever, right, must make the request to the Moxen to allow their foreign nationals to bring in opium or kif, specifically opium, because it's for, well, both of them are for medicinal purposes. This is the power we have, Morris. Go ahead, brother.
They're actually doing that right now as, you know, real time.
Yeah.
If you notice how they reverse, you know, the marijuana laws and stuff like that. What you just read is actually what they're doing, especially in New York. You know, they are granting those, you know, licenses and granted those that have municipal usage permits, you know, to now what they do, solicit, you know, the sale of it. Outside of it, it's still federally criminalized. But as long as you're within the guidelines, and anyone that's in New York and is following what they're doing with that, reading that, it's kind of hilarious to me that they're actually taking this very article and they're implementing this very article in the New York legislation real time to enact, you know, bringing back the marijuana industry online.
Trading places. She said all that to say trading places. So chapter 5, it says a regulation concerning the customs of the empire and the repression of fraud and smuggling. It deals with our ports. Let's see here. Let's see. It tells you some revenues. I'm looking for the revenues that comes from the ports. Like Article 80, I think, is one of them. If there is a serious reason to suspect the accuracy of the manifest, or in case the captain of the ship should refuse to allow the visit and verifications of custom officers, the case shall be brought to the attention of the proper consular authority in order that the latter, in company with a delegate of the Sharifian customs, shall undertake the investigation, visit, and verifications that he may judge necessary. That's not it. There's a few of these articles I think it's this right here. If after 24 hours, as stated in Article 77, the captain has not deposited his manifest, he shall incur, unless the delay be a case of bis major, a fine of 150% for each day's delay. Obviously, that we would revise the dollar amount or the amount and the currency type, right? So it's not, today is no longer percentage. In this case, then it would be dollars. And more than likely, much more than $150 for each day delay, provided, however, that the fine shall not exceed 600% or dollars, let's say, right? If the captain has fraudulently presented an inaccurate or incomplete manifest, he shall be personally condemned to pay a sum equal to the value of the merchandise for which he has failed to produce the manifest, and a fine of from 500 to 1,000%, and the vessel and merchandise shall be further liable to seizure by consular authority as security for such fine. Revenue, economic liberty without any inequality. It's all over the Act of Algeciras, man. This is a very powerful document that's given us back control over everything, including
Islam, brother. Percentage means silver coin, by the way. Percentage means silver coins, so that would be 150 silver coins. Islam.
See, I know that. That I did not know. Thank you for the clarification on that.
Islam.
What a percentage was. Go ahead, brother.
How would that article be revised? Would that be added as an additional article to this treaty, or would a new treaty be introduced and with that same article in a revised form?
Well, we would have good question. Not sure what that looks like, but I would say that it would have to be updated to today's modern understanding.
When we would write something, or when we would try to implement this in say a order or a contract or something, we would use this as a reference, but we would put in the new document or the what we were working on, the transfer rate, the conversion. But we would use this as a reference always.
Yeah, we could use it. That's for sure. We use it as a reference to govern them. And by the way, the changes could be done based on the legislation.
Islam. I'm just about to say that.
Right, Islam, bro.
Right, exactly. That's what. Yeah, exactly.
So that's how we'll do it. It's through the legislation. Now look at 83. If there should be found at the time of the visit fewer packages or less merchandise than declared, the declarant, unless able to prove that he has acted in good faith, shall pay double duties. That's taxes. Double duties, double taxes for the missing merchandise. And the merchandise presented shall be retained in the customs as security for such double duty. If on the contrary, there should be found at the time of the visit an excess of packages or quantity or weight of the merchandise, this excess shall be seized and confiscated for the benefit of the moxen, unless the person making the declaration can prove his good faith. Now we got them by the, I ain't gonna say that word, but that's what we got them. We got them by the B word, right? They got to pay double duty on stuff.
Well, you know, they had us that way for a while.
Yeah, they had us that way, and that was because we acquiesced. If the declaration should be found inaccurate as to kind or quality, and the declarant is unable to prove his good faith, the merchandise wrongly declared shall be seized and confiscated by the proper authority for the benefit of the moxen. See that they said it again. Article 83 and Article 84 is saying the same thing. They're saying it again in case you missed it. If the declaration 85, the declaration shall be found inaccurate as to the declared value, and the declarant should be unable to prove his good faith, the customs may either levy the duty in kind then and there, or if the merchandise is indivisible, take the said merchandise by at once paying to the declarant its declared value plus 5%. The Act of Algeciras. The General Conference of Algeciras, as it's properly known. This is dealing with the ports. 88, the smuggling, flagrant, or attempted in or out of the country through a port open to commerce or through a customs house shall be punished by a fine not to exceed triple the value of the merchandise so smuggled, and by imprisonment of from 5 days to 6 months, or by only one of these penalties. Come on, Morris, like, what's up? What are we gonna do about this? Are we gonna get this thing together? Or are we gonna keep on playing these games? 89, the smuggling, flagrant, or attempted in or out of the country, outside of a port open to commerce or of a custom house, shall be punished by a fine of from 300 to 500 silver coins.
Islam, brother, silver.
300 to 500. And by an additional fine equal to 3 times the value of the merchandise, or by imprisonment of from a month to a year. Are we going to continue playing games, or are we going to take action on this? Are we going to be active, or are we going to continue being passive, Morris? Because thus far we've been passive. We haven't had any forward progress, any forward motion. We've been running in place. That's not being active. Active brings about results. So are we going to continue to be passive, or are we going to move on to becoming active? Y'all, you seeing what I'm reading here? These are the reference points. Nobody can challenge me on anything. Nobody. Because I didn't write this. This is not my literature. So you wouldn't be challenging me. You challenging the Moxon. You challenging the Sultan. They're challenging international law. You ain't challenging me. It's clear language. So again, I would ask, are we going to take action on this, or are we going to keep playing these Negro games? Right? So that's this is the chapter what? Chapter 5, dealing with the ports. But as we see, there's revenue based on that. And then ultimately, as we continue, chapter 6, a declaration relative to public services and public works. That's the whole gamut right there. So now you're talking about governing the entire thing. What are public services? Public services is your governments, right? Your police department, your fire department, your 911, your, what else? You got public services and public works. Public services would also be your utilities, whether it be your water, your light, gas, that's public services. Public works is your bridges, your railroads, the streets, etc.
School systems too.
School system, that would be your public services. And we're supposed to institute reforms to fix the damage that's been caused by the colonists as it relates to education and all other forms of all the other aspects of the empire. It's like in real estate, it's like a rehab, a fix and flip. You buy an ugly house, you fix it up, excuse me, you fix it up, then you turn around and you sell it. You have to institute reforms to get it sold at the highest value possible, right? Same thing. All right. So let's get off the Act of Algeciras. We've already touched on, okay, so let's go real quick to Resolution 1514. Just a couple of articles, just to prove that our position is solidified. There's no losing. We can't lose. We can blunder pieces and still win this chess match. Why? What is Sister Makara? Could you please read number 3 for me, please?
Yeah, you got to bring it up on your screen, brother.
Oh, what happened? Your screen sharing is paused. What happened? Why did it pause?
Yeah, just probably got to stop sharing, then
Yeah, I'm gonna,
reload
yeah, I'm
back.
gonna
Yeah.
stop share and share again. Okay. All right. We're back sharing again, right? Okay. Okay. There you go. Can you see it? Can you see it now, sister? She might have took a break. I'll read for her. So number 3 says inadequacy of political. Okay, so listen. Inadequacy of political, economic, social, or educational preparedness, meaning that we don't know nothing. We have an inadequacy as it relates to political, economic, social, or educational preparedness. Means we don't know nothing. We're totally incompetent. Should never serve as a pretext for delaying independence. So even at your worst, most incompetent state, it should not serve as a pretext for delaying independence. They have to give up the estate. They have to give up the empire. They have to give up extraterritorial jurisdiction. They have to relinquish it. This is public. This is Resolution 1514. See right here, resolution adopted without reference to a committee. This is article. This is on Resolution 1514. Where is it? Trying to show it to you all, which anyone can pull it up. I mean, and that's the thing. All this stuff is free on the internet. Right there, Resolution 1514. And what does it say? Declaration on the granting of independence to colonial countries and its peoples. So we went to the Article 3. We've already went over this document. It's on the YouTube channel. It's under the United Nations Resolution 1514. If you want to go back and look at it. So if you go down, here it says, inadequacy of political, economic, social, or educational preparedness should never serve as a pretext for delaying independence. Number 4, all armed action or repressive measures of all kinds directed against dependent peoples shall cease in order to enable them to exercise peacefully and freely their right to complete independence, and the integrity of their national territory shall be respected. Shall. It has to be. There's no way around it. 5, immediate steps shall be taken in trust and non-self-governing territories or all other territories which have not yet attained independence to transfer all powers to the people of those territories without any conditions or reservations in accordance with their freely expressed will and desire, without any distinction, start over, as to race, creed, or color, in order to enable them to enjoy complete independence and freedom. Number 6, any attempt aimed at the partial or total disruption of the national unity and the territorial integrity of a country is incompatible with the purposes and principles of the evil charter of the United Nations. Because, you know, the United Nations is evil. That's the Rockefellers. That's the Rothschilds. But yet the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds are saying that any attempts at the partial or total disruption of the national unity and the territorial integrity of a country is incompatible with the charter that was established by the Rothschilds. Come on, man. 7 and final 7. The final 7, circle 7, bring it around. All states shall observe faithfully and strictly the provisions of the Charter of the United Nations, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and the present declaration on the basis of equality, non-interference in the internal affairs of all states, and respect for the sovereign rights of all peoples and their territorial integrity. How many times I got to keep saying that same thing? Their territorial integrity, the integrity of their domains. The second principle, sovereignty and independence, integrity of domains, economic liberty. Islam. All right, so let's close out with this final reference about economic liberty without any inequality. IRS.gov. IRS presents its fiscal year 2022 agency financial report. Washington. Let me increase the font so you all can read it. The Internal Revenue Service published, can you see it? Yep. Published its most recent financial report on the IRS.gov website, which provides a glimpse at IRS operations during the recently completed fiscal year 2022. This update highlights the agency's fiscal actions and financial management activities. During fiscal year 2022, the IRS received more than 4.9 trillion in tax revenue and distributed 642 billion in federal tax refunds and other outlays. That's all I wanted to point out. 4.9 trillion, $4.9 trillion that's supposed to be going to the Moxin, to the Moroccan states, to Morocco, the central government, really. And then from there, the government, from my understanding, and it could be incorrect, it would be distributed to the several states. 4.9 trillion. That's the United States fiscal year report for 2022. That's the United States federal government. Georgia's revenue in fiscal 2022 up to 23%, more than $6 billion. 4.9 trillion for the United States federal government. And what does it say here? Georgia's increased, let me increase this font. Georgia's increased net tax collection for fiscal year 2022 was 23%, or nearly 6.2 billion.
Say Billy.
Billy. The Peach State reported more than 33 billion in total state general fund receipts for the fiscal year, which ended June 30th, topping the nearly 26.9 billion collected in fiscal 2021. In June, the Empire State of the South, really? Wow, I've never heard that term before. The Empire State of the South reported more than 2.8 billion in net tax collections. That represents an increase of 14.2%, or nearly 354.2 million over June 2021, a month that saw net tax collections total 2.5 billion. For the month, gross sales and use tax collections exceeded 1.4 billion, increasing by 13.3%, or nearly 171 million over last June. Net sales and use tax increased by 12%, or 77.6 million from last year. So they've collected $6.2 billion for the 2022 fiscal year. 6 billion, man. For the state of Georgia. I could only imagine what New York looked like, or Texas, for example. Texas is a huge state. And 4.9 trillion for the entire United States federal government. And all that money, all those tax revenues is going elsewhere, not to us. And by the way, we paid a lot of it. We paid a big portion of it.
All of it, actually. All of it.
Well, we can't say really all of it, because you know the so-called white man, he pays taxes. Everybody pays taxes, right? So it's coming from everybody that's in the American jurisdiction.
Mm-hmm.
But we definitely account for a majority of it in various ways. None of which is going to us, and we're the ones who's paying out. We're not supposed to be paying out to that degree. Are we supposed to pay taxes? Yeah, there's a certain tax bracket that even the Moroccan nationals will fall under, right? The taxes are revenues for states, and if you want to keep the state afloat and keep the state going, you got to pay certain portion, your portion of it. It definitely doesn't have to be what it is right now, and it certainly is not going to be the gambit of it. The gambit comes from the foreigners, the tenants. They're the ones who's supposed to be paying these taxes in order to maintain their rights to have life, liberty, and property, and the privileges to do business in Morocco.
That's the key.
That's the key. So that concludes economic liberty without any inequality. Those are all the reference points I wanted to touch on and give clarity to what it looks like. And also the fact that the United States is done for. They're over. It's over. Stick a fork in them. They're done. We've established well, we're still reviewing it. We've got 2 more weeks. We review it once a week. All the Wazirs come together to the round table and go through the Wazir Regional Council Convention. We got 2 more weeks to go before we'll complete that review. Then we will enact it and deposit it with the United Nations. They're gonna say, "Oh, damn, look at these Moors. They're doing things in accordance with international law. They got a convention. We ain't seen this ever from these people." The regional Supreme Court has already been there's the draft articles have already been written. We got to review those to enact those as well. And currently we're typing up in the process of writing the treaty organization for the United States of Morocco. They are done. We're going the extra mile to make sure that they're done. We are going to reclaim our vast estate.
Right now on Sunday.
This year, it will happen this year. So all the Moroccan, all the Moors out there who's looking to establish their Moroccan government. But Mufti, you're off mute, brother.
I'm bad.
No problems. So all the Moors who's looking to establish their states, let's get it going. Within a month, it's been proven. We've seen AMPAG did it. AMPAG established their state within 3 weeks. We had a meeting like end of November, and by the 25th of December, they had their public inauguration. And they didn't have to pay out nothing, much of it. They had to pay to get the seal created, the state created. That's what they paid for, and the postage to mail the stuff out, to deposit it. They certainly didn't pay me $1. Right, so it doesn't even cost much to establish your state, which is sovereignty and independence. And we definitely need New York to come online. That's a powerful chess move, right? That's a powerful chess piece. Oh my God, the United Nations is right there in your backyard. Do you know how that would look to them on the international level? Oh my God, they'll be not only impressed but concerned. Like, wow. I hope these Moors are in the spirit of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, because if they come with belligerence, we're done. We can't, you know what I mean? Like, we got to come in, you know, the prophet said, when you get on top, treat the Europeans nice. It's about uplifting fallen humanity. It's not about belligerence and tearing down the world. If we did that, we could burn down the whole planet easily. Thanos got to be careful, because Thanos can just destroy everything, right? Same thing with us. All these several Moroccan states are the jewels that he was collecting. So we're collecting the jewels, the several Moroccan states. When we bring them all together under a convention, which is the Wazir Regional Council, snap your finger. Now you can start snapping your finger, and everybody gonna start disappearing. Jacob, Jews, all of them, the bankers, the politicians, Sleepy Joe, all of them, they're gonna have to fall in line. They're gonna have to acquiesce to Moroccan law. With that, I yield for any questions, comments, concern. I open the floor for any discussion. Islam. Brother Nasi, did you get the message? Because I seen that you sent me, you asked me.
Islam, brother, yes. Yes, I did. Much gratitude to that. But there are certain things that I've said to you from the official introduction of ourselves, that there are certain things that I would certainly bring to you independently. However, this matter could be brought to the table for additional purpose. So of course, you know, we have the rudder, and the rudder has a layout of the different rank structure and appointment and seats, etc. So I was going through it, and you know, it dawned upon me as to, when we talk about, you know, the legislative body, as I'm looking at the constitution for the various different statehood, and we talk about the legislative body consisting predominantly of the matriarch, well, not predominantly, constitution primarily of the matriarch, okay, and primarily wanting a zodiac number 13. So looking in correlation with the rudder, it was dawned upon me as to what would their title or appointment be, because above the prime minister you have the chief judge. So, but the chief judge is normally a man figure, and then you have the Sihara, which of course is a woman figure. So it was dawned upon me as to, okay, what would their title be in harmony with the rudder, as to why I threw the question out. So this is an opportunity in which we can now expound on that highlight, so everyone could be more clear, aware and have clarity on the matter.
Let me pull up the rudder. Keeping in mind, you made you said something that was inaccurate. The Qazi or the chief judge, here it is. The Qazi or the chief judge is not necessarily a male. That could be a female as well.
Absolutely, my error. Yes, you are right. Because it did mention woman or man. Yes.
Well, the entire rudder and sextant is unisex, right? Let me see, where is it? Where are the titles? Where is it? Key and rudderman. It's unisex, meaning that, like, for example, the Sayaraha or the matriarchal council is not necessarily in the rudder sextant. The matriarchal council is the council of elders. The good brother Hakeem, he's on the call. He can definitely go into that pretty strongly. Like, for example, here it says Sayaraha is the pilot and speaker of the parliament navigator, but it doesn't have a sex attached to it. It could be a male, right? You got the Wazir al-Rays, the Qazi, the Sutra, the Sharif. And so what we simply, all we did was make the Constitution and make our government matriarchal in nature. So the Lil Aziz and the Sayaraha, would be the matriarchal council, right? With the Sayaraha being the speaker of the parliament. And only matriarchs can take part in that branch, which is the legislative branch, the holders of the pen. They're the ones who enact all the legislation. The Wazir, the head of state, signs it into law, right? Keeping in mind that the Wazir or the Qazi or any other position can be a male or female, but only females can be mothers, matriarchs, only they could be in the matriarchal council. So the Sayaraha for us is the pilot and the speaker of the house. Go ahead, brother.
I was just going to add a few points. So regarding the rudder and sextant, the Qazi, yes, can be both male and female. However, it specifies that the female Qazi should not participate in the punishment of something. I'd have to go over it again to find the specific thing, but I believe it's capital punishment. So the sentencing of that, a woman should not be a part of it, I assume for spiritual reasons. That's right. The whole rudder and sextant, though, it's important for Moors to know that as long as your government is based on Moorish principles, for example, the principle of the mother, father, son, the triple principles, it could be 3, 6, or 9, whether it's based on numerology or geometry, astrology, whatever the case may be, as long as it's based in Moorish science, your government could have whatever form that body of Moors choose for it to take, right? So it doesn't have to be based off of AMPAG's government or AMPAG's government. It's just something that was already there, so it's easier to just, use that. But in the rudder and sextant, yes, it does not mention a matriarchal council per se. It's just something that AMPAG did, because I haven't personally heard of another body of Moors that instituted that for their government prior to AMPAG. Perhaps they did, but and that's just the blueprint that we've been using. But again, any Moorish government, whether they're established or going to be established, they can change their form of government at any time. They would have to decide upon that based on their current constitution. So you'd have to have a vote if the constitution says you have to vote. If it's set up in a monarchy type of system, then whatever head of state you have can arbitrarily decide to change the form of government. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But yeah, so definitely go over the Rudder and Sexton a few times if you need to, because it's got some really important Moorish science-based blueprints. AMPAC did a really good job of adhering to the titles of it. The structure can be, altered a bit though.
Mm-hmm. Islam, and here's the thing. The suggestion is to remain in conformity with all the other states. Though you have the right to self-determination, but we want to make it to where it's a matriarchal system, because that's how we failed. Everything became patriarchal. Our power lies in the mother, the matriarchs. And so that's why the structure is how it is, based in the structure that AMPAC established with the Rudder and Sexton based through their constitution. We've adopted it. But real quick, to go back on what the good brother said about the Qazi, there it is right here. It says the Qazi must exercise the office in a place where the public has access. She or he must not accept gift except from relatives and old friends. A woman may exercise the office of Qazi except in the administration of punishment or retaliation. You see, so that's the difference with the mothers as it relates to the Qazi. But all in all, though, the point of the matter is we want to reestablish the matriarchal system as it once was. That's what's going to give us the power that we once had. And AMPAM is an excellent example. Allodium, Moroccan, Palladium, Ante, Michigan. They're an excellent example of this because their entire 3 branches of government is made up of matriarchs. Right? You got the Sarah, obviously that would be a matriarch. The Wazir, Mia Moore Bay, she's the it's a matriarch, right? The Wazir, and so is the chief judge, and the consul general is a mother. She's on the line right now, I believe. She's still on. We had 40 people, now we're down to 37, so I'm not sure if she left, but that's what we want to do, brothers and sisters. We want to reestablish the matriarchal system as we once had. Brother Nasik, did we answer your question, or do we need to expound any further?
No, I'm on clarity. I just want one thing. The term Dali Aziz, where did you derive that term from, if I may ask?
The Dalil Aziz was here. It's in the Rudder and Sexton. Where is it?
Unless it's in the last part, which I didn't take time to look at, previously, because I know in the last page there's a lot more title than those which are in the primary sector or the primary pages.
You right here, Dalil Aziz, Great Council
is
come from the Rudder and Sexton. The Dalil Aziz is the Great Council of Elders. But in this, you see right here on the hexagram, what do you call it? Hex alpha. You see the Dalil Aziz at the bottom point, the Great Council. Yeah, it's definitely all over the Rudder and Sexton for sure. Any other questions or comments, concerns? The floor is open. Yep. So this is the Rudder and Sexton. It's a excellent blueprint for the structure of your government. This was very necessary and much needed. It even talks about ratification of treaties. It was, let's see, where is it at? Let's touch that real quick. Who does that? The Dalil Aziz does that, actually. The Great Council? Yeah. Let's see, where is it? Great Council, which is the Dalil Aziz. They're the ones who ratify treaties. The Wali, the Wazir, Mufti, Razam, Sharif, the Qazi, Sayaraha, Amir, Hajib, Sultan, Prophet. See, Prophet is a title, it's a government title in the Moroccan Empire. That's why you had the Prophet with the Sultan on the Circle 7 Quran. The Sultan is subordinate to the Prophet is subordinate to the Sultan, in case you guys didn't know that. So essentially, the Prophet Noble Ali was working with Abdul Aziz to awaken the Moors. I'm looking for where it says it as it relates to the Great Council. I'm too far up. But the Great Council is supposed to ratify constitutions or ratify treaties. It's in here somewhere. We'd have to go through it. We got a class going through the rudder and sextant. You'll probably find it there. Well, not probably, you will find it there because we definitely touched on that. But let's see if I can find it real quick here. Sayaraha, pilot or Helsman, who is chosen to direct the astrological chamber. Where is it? Where is it? The Qazi, the Wazir al-Ray, Sutra, Sharif, Razam, Mufti, Wazir, Wali. Should be here somewhere. We're getting closer to it.
Yeah, it's in that section that speaks about the various bodies of the government versus the positions.
I think that's right here. Council of Notables or Elders, Senior Upper Chamber of the Legislature. Its role is that of ratification of all measures. This is right here, the JAMA. Council of Notables or Elders, Senior Upper Chamber of the Legislature. Its role is that of ratification of all measures prepared in the lower, no, that's not it. In the lower chamber before they are sent on to the Dalil Aziz, Great Council or Executive Cabinet for implementation. His function is that of a keeper of the sacred relics and has the power of making the decision to remove a senior officer. House of
a little further down.
Yeah,
that one was like a Senate.
Right here. The Great Council, the great proof of the Great Council, Upper Executive Council that decrees policy once it is drafted and approved by the legislature. It is composed of the Sultan, the Hajib, the Sayaraha, the Sutra, the Amir, the Wazir al-Rais, the Qazi, and the Sharif. This body has input from every branch of government. It has the functions of confirmation of appointments, ratification of treaties with all outside elements, and is the key government agency. The Amir presides over this body. What body is that? The Great Council, the Dalil Aziz. So for us, it's the matriarchal council, and it's the mothers, the matriarchs. But their job is to ratify treaties, ratification of treaties. So this book or this pamphlet was authored or published in the late 80s. Way back then, somebody knew about ratification of treaties. Why didn't we expand on that? Let's see what year this was put together. It tells you in the beginning.
87.
Interjection, brother.
Yes, sir.
I'm looking at my copy too, which is the same thing as you have. Look at page 17. I'm looking back at the Dalil Aziz, Great Council. And if I may, it says, the great proof of the Great Council, Upper Executive Council, that decree policy once it is drafted and approved by the legislature. It is composed of the Sultan, the Hajib, the Sihariya, the Sutra, the Amir, the Wazir al-Rahid, the Qazi, and the Sharif. This body has input from every branch of government. Okay, and I stopped in that paragraph. So based on all the seats here that makes up this great council, how would you compose it now with what you just described earlier on, with all the matriarch being a part of the great council? Would you propose that we have a Dali Aziz outside this structure independently?
That would be the Wazir Regional Council. That would be the Wazir Regional Council. That's the other great council. That's the council that's bringing all the Moroccan states together and governing our several Moroccan states based in international conformity of international law and treaty provisions.
So I'm not sure if I'm following you on this point, bro. Because okay, so we're looking at the same page. I think this is page 7.
I'm looking at it.
No, it's actually page 19, but it says 17 on top. And you see where it says Dali Aziz, parentheses, great counselor.
That's right.
Right. So am I to comprehend that you are saying that this council here is you were saying it's distinguished different from that of the matriarchal council? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, it's different. It's a different structure than the matriarchal council as it's set up based on the Dalil Aziz.
Okay.
So the Great Council here, as it relates to the Dalil Aziz, it's composed of the Sultan, which we don't have, the Hajib, the Sayaraha, the Sutra, the Amir, which we don't have, the Wazir Reis, the Qazi, and the Sharif. And it says that this body has input from every branch of government. That will be the case with the Wazir Regional Council. The Wazir Regional Council has input. It's a body that has input from every branch of government.
Right.
The structure, so the internal structure of our government is not, how do I say, 100%
verbatim
in alignment verbatim with the Rudder and Sexton. There's been some revisions. So the Great Council is not the Great Council, it's the Matriarchal Council, and it only deals with the matriarchs, which would be the Dalil Aziz. Whereas here, it's composed of the Sultan, the Hajib, the Sayaraha, the Sutra, the Amir, the Wazir Reis, the Qazi, and the Sharif. But we don't have it structured that way. We have it structured whereas it's the Great Council or the Matriarchal Council is simply 13 mothers, 13 as the legislators. Now, as far as a Great Council that governs the activities of our several Moroccan states, right, which has input from every branch of government, that would be the Wazir Regional Council. So we established something separate outside of our government structure. We set up a convention to govern our several Moroccan states. That would be the same principles, just slightly, not even slightly, probably. There's probably great differences, but the principles remain the same, if you understand what I'm saying.
Overstood, brother.
Well, I'm glad I answered that question. Anyone else?
Islam. So I just wanted to add that everything that we're doing right now is good for like a starting point, especially since we don't have the necessary official amount of officials to fill all these spots within the Rudder and Sexton, especially qualified officials for positions like Khalif, right? It's good for a starting point. However, as we progress, we ought to keep in mind the need to essentially make sure that we're based completely on Moorish science. You feel what I'm saying? So it doesn't have to reflect the Rudder and Sexton 100%, because even the Rudder and Sexton gives room for, whatever kind of dynamic changes a Moorish government needs to make to fit its needs, right? But we have to keep that in mind so there's absolutely no confusion as we progress and grow.
And then here's another point.
Well said.
Here's another point that's very important to understand, Brother Nasik and everyone else on the line. The Rudder and Sexton is based in for the most part, is based in a monarchy. right? A monarchy system. That's why you have a sultan in there. Our system, our government is based on 3 branches of government, which is why you don't have a sultan. So ours is established based on based on 3 branches of government, whereas the rudder and sexton is being described more specifically as a monarchy. So you got the sultan, and then all the other government officials that surround the sultan that would make the moxen. The denotative meaning of a moxen, but as I was explaining earlier, we're operating based on the connotative meaning of the moxen, which means just simply a Moroccan state or government, not a Moroccan state government that surrounds the sultan, which is what the moxen was in the day. So today, the moxen is now the 3 branches of government, absent or void of a sultan, because it's not a matriarchal system. It's not a monarchy system. It's a 3 branches of government, democratic republic system. Understood?
We are together.
Islam.
As Brother Hakeem says, there's room for improvement and amendment.
That's right. So it's a guide. It's a guide, right? And you plug and play with it as you see fit with your state. So for example, like the Hajib, or like let's say even the Nabi is different within our state than it is as it relates to the rudder and sextant. Right? The Nabi is the spiritual sciences. What's the director? Not director. Well, he or she is over the spiritual sciences. Let's go to the Constitution. Let's go to the Moroccan Constitution, or our Constitution, which I've shared with you guys. Okay, let's go here, Constitution. And you'll see the different titles in there. Oh, there we go. So as I scroll, I don't know if you'll be able to see it because it's pretty small, but I'll read it out for you.
Zoom in.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to zoom in. Let me find okay. So most of these positions, I hope you guys can see a little better now. So all these positions, so you have 3 branches, which means 3 articles. Let's go to it. So Article 1 is the Wazir al-Rays. Let me slide this bar over. Can I? Doesn't look like I can. Let's see. Yeah, we can. Okay. Okay. So the Wazir al-Rays is Article 1. And within the Wazir al-Rays, that's where most of the branches or the offices, the surplus executive offices reside. And what are those? The Deputy Wazir al-Rays, the Dar al-Wazirat, the Wazir Butal Ma'al, which is the state treasurer, the Hajib, which is the Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Qadi, the deed tax assessors. We already went over to discuss the Qadi. You got the different Razams, Razam of national standing, trust and estates, Razam of transportation. And then we got the public relations, the Mudif Imam. That's actually, that's not off the rudder and sextant, but we added that specific department, and we utilize an Arabic term, the Arabic equivalent for it, but that's not from the rudder and sextant. So part 5, on 5, you got the Mufti, you got the Sutra, Minister of Defense or Secretary of Defense, and then you see here the Nabi, which is the Secretary of the Education and Spiritual Science. In the rudder and sextant, the Nabi is not the Secretary of Education and Spiritual Science. You see, the Wahid Liham comes from the rudder and sextant as well, and it also definitely deals with mind and heart. That's the Secretary of Health and Family Well-being. You see, and so we've got those titles in here, and this is how we utilize it, using the rudder and sextant as a guide to establish the different structures. But again, there's 3 branches, right? So all these offices fall under the Wazir al-Rays, the executive branch. Outside of that, when you go into Article 2, now you're talking about who? The Sayaraha, which is one of the three branches, the legislative branch. And in it, with it, you have the Dalil Aziz, the Sayaraha being the Speaker of the House and the Dalil Aziz being the matriarchal council and all of its associate Dalil Aziz members. And then the final position, excuse me. Okay, the final position or branch of government, there's Article 2, that would be Article 3, which is who? Slide it over. The Qazi. So it's a different structure than the rudder and sexton, because again, the rudder and sexton is based on a monarchy. We use the rudder and sexton to establish 3 branches of government, not a monarchy. So one branch is the Wazir Reis, the other branch is the Dalil Aziz or the Sayaraha, and then the other branch, the third branch is the Qazi, the chief judge of consular court. Right? Whereas with the rudder and sextant, they're all part of the Great Council, you see? And the Sultan being the head of the Great Council. So that's the main difference between the two. One is a matriarch, one is a monarchy, the other one is the 3 branches of government, which is what we established it to be. Islam. Any other questions in this matter? Anything else? Go ahead, brother.
No, I was just going to say I may update that rudder and sextant article with the diagram I had created. It's taken quite a while to get to that other article. So I'm going to start.
Islam. I'm sure you'll get to it, and you did an excellent job with it as it is now, as is.
Islam.
Greatly appreciated, good brother, and all your hard work and efforts. You guys may not know his name, but man, I tell you, he's doing a lot of work behind the scenes. A lot of things are, hell, this website is because of him, the good brother Hakeem Bey, right? He's doing a lot of work behind the scenes with the Moorish governments, to include establishing the website for the Wazir Regional Council. And there'll be lots of documents and information on there that the Moroccan states can download and convert it to their internal laws for their particular states, making it even more easier, making it even more repeatable, duplicatable, and transferable, so that the Moors don't have to burn up brain cells and trying to figure all this stuff out. It's all been figured out. It's just a matter of it's for you now to adopt everything. Obviously, you have to read over it, study it, adopt it, fit it to your state and your self-determination, right? And move from there. But at least most of the work was done. You don't have to worry about burning up any brain cells to try to get this thing going. It's all been established already between our 4 states. Together, we're looking at about close to 4 years in operation combined. 2 years with AMPAG, 7 years with AMPAG, 7 months with AMPAG, 7 to 8. We're pushing 8. Same with New Mecca, and about 4 months or 5 months with Maru. And Maru, being that they're coming in as the 4th recognized state, they actually have done everything right the first time. So they learned from all the mistakes that the previous 3 states made. They came in and they did everything right the first time, just like that. Which means, and AMPAM did the same, or are still doing the same. Where they're knocking on the door for recognition. They'll be up next to be recognized, and then after that, DEMTI would be recognized. They're working on theirs, getting their stuff in order, right? And we're all going to be part of this Wazir Regional Council, and all the Wazirs of all the several states will be part of the Wazir Regional Council. So it's not limited to the 4 recognized states; it's for all the Wazirs, for each and every state. And their body, their state has input in what goes on with the Wazir Regional Council, i.e. the Great Council that we just discussed, which also can be considered to be the Supreme Grand Council that Prophet Noble Ali was trying to establish with the Moorish Temple of America, and it never was established, the Supreme Grand Council. If you guys are familiar with that, I'm not sure, but that is a thing that the Prophet was trying to had mandated to establish for the Moorish Temple. They never did it. Amongst many things that they never did, because it's been sold out, plain and simple. Okay, with that said, time to close out so that everyone can get ready for work tomorrow. And it's a pleasure, but again, you know, we are delaying our own justice by not taking action and being active instead of passive. The answer to the test is it's all over international law. It's all over our treaties. It's all through the charter. It's you got resolution 1514 and resolution 2650, I believe it's called, that deals with decolonization. The world is calling for decolonization. Period. Why? Because it's the Moors who've been colonized. And the world knows that it's only the Moors that can bring about peace and security to planet Earth. Once again, uplift fallen humanity, take back control of all the military and all its nuclear weapons, and end war once and for all. We will end war. You know, there's a song called Rule by Nas of the Stillmatic album. It's called Rule. He said, no war, we should take time to think. The bombs and tanks make mankind extinct. Powerful words that's always stuck out to me since I first heard it back in 2001. No war, we should take time to think. The bombs and tanks make mankind extinct. We got to get rid of war, Moors. That's how we uplift fallen humanity, and we have all the authority to do so because we have control over, go back to the Act of Algeciras. We have control over the police, as well as the arms. Go back up to the different chapters. Close out with the chapters. Where is it? Such a big document. It's easy to lose your position. Where were we? Okay, so here we are. Getting closer. Here we are. Here we are. Thank you for your patience. I'm sorry about this scrolling, but here we are. So you got a declaration relative to the organization of the police, which includes the military. A regulation concerning the detection and repression of the contraband of arms. We have control over the guns and all the arms of war, including arms of sport. That's in chapter 2. And also we have control over the military and the police. With that authority over those two specific areas of society, we can end war once and for all. We literally can shut down Putin with a pen overnight, with a snap of a finger. Putin can be shut down. And that whole Ukrainian and Russian war can end overnight. This is the power of the Moors. You can shut down anybody that's acting belligerent to planet Earth. And guess what? All the nation states on planet Earth would back us in this effort because they are seeking and they're looking for international peace and security. We're tired of war. We're tired of poverty. We're tired of homelessness. The only reason why the world failed is because the Moors failed. And the world knows this. So when the Moors come back online in full powers as found in good and due form, the world will back us, but only if we can show and prove that we're here in the spirit of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, love instead of hate, diplomacy, and that we will treat the Europeans nice when we get on top. And if we can show and prove that, if we'll treat the Europeans nice when we get on top, the world will feel comfortable and confident in our governance, and they won't block us. If anything, they will back us. Islam, that would conclude this particular session. We'll have another one next Sunday. We didn't have one last Sunday because of the Super Bowl. I had to work for the Super Bowl. And I hated it, but it's okay. It was a great day.
Yes, last question in relation. As we evolve in this endeavor, and those whom have already committed their devotion, and others whom will in time do commit also, it's clear that we see the severe importance of being a government official, a custodian to the people. On that note,
repeat that, brother. You broke up. Something happened with you.
You hear me now? Okay.
Yeah, I hear you. Go back.
Okay, let me summarize. Based on being a custodian to the people and understanding the significant importance that it entails. I deem it essential and an absolute necessity is that in your absence there be a continuance nonetheless of this gathering, even if it means you have to delegate the topic to be discussed, and it can probably be discussed at a shorter span, but we cannot allow the absence of one official stop the operation from continuing.
That's right. And yeah, that's right. I mean, that's absolutely correct. One monkey can't stop the show.
Absolutely. So in honor, to your absence for whatever cause there may be, this Zoom call still is essential to continue somehow, some form, some way.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. So even when I'm not able to, someone else should be able to take on the reins. Okay. Yeah, I got to figure something out like that. We got to find someone that can will be willing and able to participate, take control of the call or the class when in my absence. So that I'm definitely looking into that. So excellent point of interest. I appreciate it, and I'm definitely looking into that.
Okay.
And if I have any volunteers, then by all means. It appears as though the good brother Roz can potentially do it, but it wouldn't be appropriate because he hasn't established a state yet, right?
Islam,
it has to come from Moors that has experience. Go ahead, brother.
No, I said Islam with that. I'm in agreement with you.
Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking possibly Akil. I'll talk to Akil about that. But great point. And I'll trust me, it's been I'm considering that. I'm looking for somebody.
Take into consideration too that we don't necessarily have to go 2.5 to 3 hours. We could just, cut an hour just so we could have the dialogue and update and still keep that inter-family relation or interstate relation going outside the regional conference calls.
Islam, good brother.
Islam.
I appreciate that point of interest. We'll duly noted. Anyone else have any comments? Well, this was an excellent build. I'm pretty sure you guys got the phone numbers. Doesn't take long. Okay, good. So this was an excellent build, and I appreciate it. Thanks for your presence, your attendance, brother Yaya. Thanks for your attendance as well, especially it being your first one, and I hope it's not the last. Please continue coming back.
Definitely, inshallah.
Islam, brother, please do, because we got to continue working together. We're all in this together. We got to keep working together to get this thing going. We have to bring down the United States. We have to force decolonization. There's no way around it. There's no way around it. There's no other remedy but to get these people under our control, period, and take back control of the United Nations and the Charter and the Security Council, right? Take back control of all the weapons of war and the military and the police and the banking. I mean, everything. It all belongs to us, Moors. So what we waiting on? We gonna keep playing? Or we gonna get serious and start taking some serious action and be active and not passive? I'll leave that up to you. But we're here to assist you all for free to get this ball rolling. So continue coming and petition us for our assistance. We will be here for you all. We will not forsake you. And keep in mind that everything that we share with you are things that we are doing ourselves. So if you fail, we all fail. If we fail, you all fail. We're in this together. We're locked in. Islam, I yield with that. Peace and love, and may the blessings of Allah be upon you all.
Peace and
love. Have a good night.
Islam.
Peace and
Peace and
love.
love.
Peace and love.
Peace.
Islam.